Good morning, everyone. This is Michael Gibbs. I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Architects. How are we all today? Well, I know we're just beginning and we haven't really made a big announcement about this, so I hope everyone's doing well. My name is Michael Gibbs, and I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Architects, and we're an organization dedicated towards building high-performance cloud computing careers. I've been working in technology now for well over 25 years now, and I've been working with others to help them get their first tech job or get promoted in tech for 2 decades, and it's something I absolutely love doing. So, Alexandra, welcome. I'm so happy that you're here today. So, we do these sessions, at least once a week, and I think we're going to try and do them twice a week because I want to make sure that every one of you out there has a roadmap to build your cloud architect career, your cloud engineering career, whatever career you truly desire. Internally, we focus on architecture work because I've been working in architecture since 2000. But, I also want to be sure that every one of you gets whatever skills you need. And, if you're not sure exactly the skills that you need and you study the wrong skills, it can keep you from getting to your job. So I welcome you all here. Ask any questions about how to get to your goals. Tell me what you desire. We can talk about your background, energy, experience. And with that, armed with that information, we can make recommendations to really help you build your career. And that's why we do these, and we do these completely free, and we do them, twice a week for this exact reason. We want to make sure that you have all the skills necessary to be able to build the cloud computing career of your dreams. So please, feel free to ask any questions you actually desire. I want to make sure we give you everything we possibly can to assist you with your cloud computing career. Are there any questions so far? Alexandra Prescott, so welcome to see you here. Can you give an idea of what types of roles or where in the company a new solution architect would start? I think that's really a fantastic question, Alexandra. And for this, I really want to I want to answer it in a holistic sort of way. So when it comes to getting your first technology job, there's no written or unwritten rules where you need to start. So a lot of people have it in their mind that they have to start with help desk or they have to start with these introductory level roles. Maybe some basic systems administration, maybe the person that, plugs servers into the rack and cables them up. But I got to tell you, that's not true. When I started my career, I was practicing medicine one day as a nurse practitioner, and the next day I'm a senior network engineer. So depending upon how well you prepare yourself, and when I talk about preparation, I'm talking about the following. I'm talking about technical competency. I'm talking about, communication skills. I'm talking about executive presence. I'm talking about emotional intelligence. I'm talking about your attitude, your enthusiasm, and how much gravitas or executive presence you have. That will really determine where you're at. So, I have some people that, trained in solution architect roles. Now, if the people don't train communication skills, they're going to be taking a cloud engineer role as their first job. And if these people that don't train communication skills, executive presence, emotional intelligence, ROI modeling, that person will be a cloud engineer for their whole life. And if people enjoy building things and people really enjoy those hands-on roles, I think it's great. Now, by comparison, if you get a person and they really focus on end-to-end system design and they really learn how that works, and they're really building the communication skills, and they're really building the executive presence and the emotional intelligence, and they're learning the deep knowledge about the network and the data center and how all these pieces tie together, and they know about virtualization, they know about containers and firewalls and IDS, IPS systems and load balancers, and they have deep knowledge of all kinds of storage, and they have knowledge of security protocols and end-to-end system design. Now, that person could start off with a solution architect or even a cloud architect job. Now, it would be hard to do on one's own. But if you really have that level of training and knowledge, and look, we spend 250 hours taking people that have technology experience and turning them into cloud architects. We spend about 500 hours for people that have never worked in tech before. So this is not, when we're talking about knowledge to be able to take these jobs that aren't basically simple, we're talking about being certain you've got the skill set. high levels of technical competency, high levels of communication skills. These are the things that get you hired. So, Alexandra Prescott, it does not have to be a basic job that you take first, but understand it's going to be your level of competency, number one. How the manager feels about you. Do they trust you? Do they like you? Do they see you as energetic, enthusiastic? Do they see you as a person that's going to raise the energy in the room? Do they see a good team player? Do they see someone that's going to go above and beyond? That's the determination, Alexandra, of what they are willing to hire you for. There's 50% of your skills related to the competency and 50% is related to everything else. So on your first job, we got to maximize all those other things. So Alexandra, I hope I answered your question. And if you've got more questions or more desires, please come off mute, and I'd love to answer it in any way you want. So, GZ, good morning all. GZ, welcome. We're so happy to hear you. Remote Revolutions, you were curious if I can do a video on what tech solutions enable remote work and virtual conferences. Well, Remote Revolutions, we possibly could do this, but we've been doing remote work and virtual conferences for over 20 years now in the tech world. I mean, the things that actually make these technologies work are as follows. They're typically VPNs with regards to IP security. They're typically IP telephony. So basically, you can get a phone call anywhere with either a software phone that's sitting on your computer, or basically have a VPN device and you have an IP phone that plugs directly in the VPN device in your house. Conferencing equipment such as Cisco WebEx and Zoom are really things that enable the technology for the most part. And for the most part, more hosted web apps, that's HTTP and HTTPS, kind of do these things. Things that actually help are things like one-time passwords and tokens that make it more secure for you to get there. And all in all, what's really next is high-speed networking. So either really fast connections to the internet or private lines in certain cases, depending upon what's actually necessary. I've worked from home since 2001, and working from home, I did it all with IPsec tunnels and hardware phones and software-based IP phones, for example, that I really spent a lot of time. Lots of conferencing equipment, lots of airplanes. Airplanes are really part of working remote. There is no such thing as pure remote. You don't need to go to the office, but here's the thing. Sometimes, you get the Secretary of the Navy and a bunch of generals coming in, and you're going to do that meeting in person, so you're going to have to fly there. Other days, what's going to happen is you're going to find yourself needing to go to the customer site, because you're going to have to start with the executive and figure out, what their business goals are, what their business needs are, and that has to be done on site. And sometimes you're going to have to go to the office to do these massive whiteboard sessions with people from all over the world. Sometimes you're going to need to be on site to be part of a team. And none of the tech can completely remove all that. Having said that, conferencing makes it a lot easier not to be there. VPN technologies, voice over IP, all the other IP telephony things such as expert networks, for example, I can have it set up where with IP telephony for voice over IP solutions, I can create what's called an expert network. Say I'm in a hospital. I can create a network of all the neurologists that are there, all the neurosurgeons that are there, all the orthopedic surgeons that are there, the interventional cardiologist, the EPS cardiologist, the medical cardiologist, for example. And then I can make it set up that I can place a phone call, and we'll use something called presence, which is a functionality part of the SIP protocol that does the signaling for the phone calls, that can say, if I need a neurologist, I can pick up a call and say neurologist, and the technology can look for who's an available neurologist and route the call completely. So high-speed networking, voice over IP, IP video, conferencing technologies, and high-speed networks are the things that really make remote work possible. Remote Revolutions. I've been doing this for 20 years, and the cloud doesn't really have anything to do with remote concepts. I love the cloud. We could do all these remote things in the data center or the cloud, but then again, a cloud is just a hosted network in a data center, so we can do it in either case. I hope I answered your question there, but maybe we can do something in the future. I'll run it past my team of talking about remote work solutions, but it's kind of an old technology with regards to remote work. It's not anything new. So I hope I answered those questions. Michael, ISSJ2, how are you today? I'm doing wonderful, Michael. How are you? Rajam, you have 19 years experience in networking software development, L2, L3 protocols, and forwarding. You want to break away from C program and even try to be self-employed. So I think there's a second half of this question. The second half of this question is, what prospects are there on the cloud side? How should you start preparing for a freelancer or independent consulting work? Is age, seniority a barrier in a world dominated by young people? Okay, I'm going to answer the last question first. Age is not a barrier. And as an architecture role, you're going to be an advisor to the executives in the far end. And while I've helped 25-year-olds get cloud architect jobs, and I've done it plenty of times, it's a lot easier for me to get a 50-year-old an architect job than it is a 25-year-old. Here's the thing, as an architect, you're going to be evaluating someone's business. You're going to be making business recommendations. You're going to, and when you're a little older, people assume you have some wisdom and they take you more seriously. There's a saying in the business, I've earned my gray. And when you're really dealing with these billion-dollar deals or $100 million technology projects, they want to see someone with a little gray hair. They want to see someone that's been in the industry for a little while. So age is not a barrier. Being too young is a barrier, but I've been highly successful over the last few decades getting young people hired. But it's much, much, much easier on the someone's a little older. So, I should say this. 50 is not too young. I've worked with 60-year-olds and they do great. So I'm 48 myself. So let's regard that. So I'm going to answer that. So the next question is, you're in the software development side, but you want to get out of the software development side. Okay, train to be an architect, Rajan. That can get you out of there. So it's good that you've been working on these L2, L3 protocols. My assumption is if you've been coding L2 and L3 protocols, you know something about standard spanning tree. You probably know OSPF. You may know BGP because you've worked on the code. And you can let me know if that's in fact true. But if you actually know these routing protocols because you built the protocols and you actually understand how NAT works because you've worked on this and you've actually worked on VLANs and 802.1q tagging and ether channel link aggregation groups, if you've been working on all these L2, L3 things for the last few years, like 20 years, chances are you know these protocols really well. I had a friend, Kumar, and when I had a discussion with Kumar, he wrote BGP code. So he was an expert at it. So I think that's really great. So if you want to be an architect, you can be an architect. Now, when you want to become an architect, Rajan, it's not the same as another tech career. So you've got all this deep in the weeds engineering background. And we architects are much higher level. We kind of we're how all the pieces and parts work together. So if you spent your life in software development, hopefully you actually understand the network from the things that you've actually done. If you understand BGP, OSPF, NAT, VLANs, 802.1q tagging, so queuing, queue tagging, Ethernet over MPLS, and I don't mean just not to the internet, I mean out all the use cases. So QoS and VLANs and network segregation and private VLANs, you're halfway there. You should understand firewalls. You should understand VPN concentrators. You need to understand load balancers. You need to understand Linux, and which I'm sure you do. You need to understand server architecture and how they work. You need to understand all those technologies. You're going to need a good knowledge of basically IAM or AAA authentication, authorization accounting. You're going to have to understand cloud technology. So I recommend you actually build a cloud from scratch. All my students do. And that's how we train our students. So make those things kind of clear and obvious to you. So then you're going to need to learn business acumen, ROI modeling. You're going to need to learn executive presence, emotional intelligence, communication skills. And you're going to be doing all those things. So for those, that's how you transition out of here. You change your thinking, you change your knowledge, and you focus on the bigger picture. Now, you're asking about the cloud side. Now, if you want to go out there and be an architect, there are 1,000,001 jobs. If you wanted to be an engineer, there's 1,000,001 jobs for that too. Although I like architecture careers because they pay a lot more, you're farther removed from the customer, and you're closer to the money because you're in the process of designing and selling things. The closer you are to the money, the higher your salary will be, but also more importantly, the less likely you'll ever be involved in a layoff because you're a revenue source for the organization. Now, the second half of your question is, how do you start becoming a freelancer or doing independent work? Well, Rajam, here's the thing. If you have no experience doing architecture work, first you need to be an architect, then you need to work as an architect before you do freelancing. See, when you work in a big company, being an architect is going to be like this. You're going to have a cloud infrastructure architect like me. You may have another cloud security architect like me. You're going to have a generic cloud architect. You're going to have a big data architect on your team. You're going to have an IAM architect, which is different than a security architect. You're going to have a database architect on your team, plus a big data architect. You're going to have some cloud engineers that build the things you design. You're going to have some sysops people, which will be the maintenance people that'll help guide you on how you set it up for simpler maintenance. You're going to have some DevOps people that are going to automate the release of these things. So understand you're going to have a big team. And that's perfect if you do like a 500-hour program of ours or a 250-hour program of ours to learn how to be an architect, because you're going to be there. Now, if you're trying to do consulting on your own, either you hire a team of 20 people to help you do good projects, in which case you'll be great, or works for somebody for a couple of years so that you're actually capable of advising your clients. See, at least if you work for a big company, you can ask a lot of people to help along the way. But the second you go freelance, you've got nobody to ask. So when you go freelance, your job gets much different. An architect would normally just design. But if you're freelance and you're the only one person, you may have to build at the same time. You may have to do this. You have to do monitoring, maintain. So for you to go freelance, my recommendation is that you've got a lot of experience long before you do it, because otherwise, you're not going to have anybody to ask questions to, and that can be pretty dangerous. So I hope I answered your question there, Rajan. Okay, who's the next question? GZ, thanks, Mike. You're going to do your best to prioritize your career goals. Good, despite your current work obligations. Well, that is something I have to do every single day. I always have to prioritize things. I've had to prioritize things from when I was a martial artist, when I was a paramedic, paying my way through school. And guess what? I still prioritize things throughout my day and always have. So I think that's a very good thing. If you put in the time, you put in the effort, you really work at it, you can achieve anything you want. So laser-like focus. Take all your time and energy and effort, love and passion, focus it on a single thing, and that's when the magic happens. So I strongly encourage you to go out there and go fight for your dreams, remove any roadblock along the way, crush obstacles, and celebrate your victories. And soon enough, you'll be there. Okay, who's next with regards to questions? Michael ISSJ2, great question. What would a cloud architect do in a day? For example, design PowerPoint when you presentations for stakeholders when you hold a meeting. Okay, Michael. So I've been an architect now for 2.5 decades. Here's what a day could be like. A day could be meeting with some client executives to get business out requirements. A day could be meeting with the client's technical team to try and learn more of the technical clients. The half of your day, as a rule, is going to be designed on writing up documents and setting up presentations for your customers, designing architectures. So you'll design an architecture, you'll diagram it out, you'll build a PowerPoint around it, you'll build Word documents, different documents for the executives, as well as the technical managers, as well as the technical team. You'll be on site doing a lot of presentations from time to time, or remote. You will be buying lunches, dinners, and drinks with your corporate credit card to your clients to try and entertain clients and deepen the relationships. You may be doing a little bit of ROI modeling. So, Michael, it's a cross between a business job and a technical job. Part of the day may involve some sales. Part of the job may involve some presentations. Lots of it will be doing documentation. Lots of it will be meetings with other members on your team. For example, they're going to have a lot of members and they're going to work together. And you're going to have to be part of that. You're going to have to be a leader. You're going to have to be a manager of resources that you're going to be pulling from all across the company you work for. And of course, you're going to be doing systems design, because that's what architects do, is design. So that's kind of the day of what it looks like. There are going to be days, they're not going to be the same day every day. That's one of the BAs of being an architect. It's not like being an engineer where you're at the same computer doing the same thing each day. One day you may be giving a speech in London. The day after that, you may be giving a speech in Australia. The next month, you could actually be sitting behind your computer and on conference calls. Then you could spend 2 weeks on site, having a lot of meetings with a client, and then getting prepared to basically go back and do an architecture. So you could also be managing a team of engineers that are doing reconnaissance for you, where you send like 20 engineers on site, and they go through with the client's technical team, and they start diving deep into the servers, the containers they have. What do the load balancers architect look like? I've worked on projects being an architect where, realistically speaking, we had 20 people on site for 6 months just to figure out what the customer even had. So, these are the kind of things we do. As architects, we're leaders, we're part sales, we're part technical people, we're part design, we're part presenters, we're kind of all those things. So I hope I answered your question. Okay, who's got the next question or statement? Okay, Michael, I see the second half of your question. Does our course also teach how to write documentation and communication for executives? Absolutely. In fact, we don't have a 10-hour basic course like the rest of the certification providers. What we have is as follows. We have a comprehensive program. We teach you how to interview, how to negotiate higher salaries, how to negotiate better business deals, how to lead people, how to do RLI modeling, how to do, how to deal with the executive presence, how to build a resume, how to interview, literally everything. And of course, we teach cloud computing. So absolutely, Michael, we teach this. You can't be an architect without all these skills. It's only possible to become an engineer with these skills. And people come to us to be architects, so we have to give them everything they need. And it's a hybrid between an MBA, the engineering background, the architecture background, and everywhere in between. So of course we cover that. Okay, so Michael, I feel like we answered your questions. Please feel free to answer more. And Chris from my team can put, and we can post if you've got any deep questions you want to ask, via voice. You're also welcome to call our office. Chris from my team will make sure that you've got a copy of the program, as long as a 20% off coupon if anybody desires. Okay, so send the next question for me, please. Okay, we'll get the next. Okay, so Joggin Man. Hey man, I'm doing the restart program, planning to sit for the solutions architect exams. Excellent, that's fantastic. That will give you a start, and it will at least help you with the certification piece. So if you want to go from construction to IT, and I've transitioned from other careers as well, you got to remember the following. I went from practicing internal medicine to senior engineer literally in a couple of months. In fact, I went from working in medicine to senior engineer over a weekend. But that's neither here nor there. But I did do a couple months worth of preparation in the back, and I was the lead architect within 6 months of my tech career beginning. But that's me. And I worked really hard at it, and it can definitely be done. So if you're really looking for advice, I'm going to tell you this. Certification will not get anybody hired. I'm going to say this again. Certification will not get anybody a job. Now, certification will do the following. It will teach you the name of an AWS service and how to configure it, which is really good for a junior level implementation engineer. But that's what certification teaches, the name of the service and how to configure it. So now let's take a look back and actually look at the solution architect job or the cloud architect job, where we interact with our client, we ask the right questions, we figure out what their systems are, what their business goals are, what their pain points are, what their challenges are, and then we go back. And once we go back, we figure out, what kinds of technology solutions that are out there that can make their business goals possible. Kind of like when someone said, how do you enable conferencing? Well, this is the same thing. We go back and we start looking for the solutions that can make the customer's business do well. Then we design these solutions, Jagan. And then after we design them, we have to go back to the customer and basically talk to the customer and show them how they need to use these. So see the things covered in certification, which is like, here's an S3 bucket and how to configure it. As an architect, here's the problem. We don't configure anything as a rule. And we also don't do any of the work that is even described in the certification. So if the certification is the name of the service and how to configure it, and we're dealing with end-to-end systems design, the certification for architecture is about 99% irrelevant completely. So we make sure that any new person we have prior to entering the job market has an AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, along with the certification from industry. But even having the Certified Solution Architect Professional, that's not enough to get hired in 90% of the cases. It doesn't even come close. So Getting the certified solution architect professional is approximately 10%. So in order to do this, you're going to need to do the following. You're going to need to make sure you learn networking completely. And you're going to need to know that you become an expert in data center technologies. Why am I so big on the network and the data center? Look, I've built the cloud, and I've been working on clouds, whether it was Frame Relay, ATM, VPLS, RFC 2547, BGP VPNs. I've been working on the cloud for decades. The cloud's not new. In fact, the cloud is nothing more than an old school 30-year-old data center and network that's now virtualized. Nothing's really changed for the most part other than serverless and auto-scaling. But that's pretty much it. It's the same thing we've dealt with for the last 30 years. And every new thing that I see is a 30-year-old technology, every brand new announcement. So, there's those kind of things. So I want to make sure that you actually understand that. So great that you're doing this. With the restart, I encourage you, go pass those certification exams. We have completely free AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate, AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, and AWS Advanced Networking courses completely free. The link is in the description below, along with a free ebook for the Certified Solution Architect Associate. But please understand, that is 10%. You also will need to learn ROI modeling, executive communication skills, executive presence, train emotional intelligence, learn how to speak to the CEO versus the CFO versus the CIO versus the CTO, learn how to deliver incredible presentations, learn how to write documents with excellence. Then, Jagan, you actually have this. So we've got a training program that can get you there. You can do the restart. And when you're done the restart, you can do the professional. You could train with us and be hired. If you're not with us, make sure you basically take an emotional intelligence class. We're super cheap because this is a charitable mission. But, Goldman, Biotis have an emotional intelligence class. It's a few $1,000s. It's good. Speakeasy has a talk so people listen. It's a great introduction to speeches. It's a few $1,000s, but I recommend it. You will need interview courses if you're not with us to learn how to interview for these jobs, because these jobs are very different than other jobs. So make sure you have that. With us, it's included, but if you're not, don't worry about it. You can do this on your own. These are the places where you can actually do this. Now you need to learn ROI modeling. And for that, make sure you can get that in an MBA program where you can start doing some ROI modeling training, business acumen training. You need to know that. These are kind of minimal business skills that you need to have. Make sure you do some presentations. If you're with us, we teach it. If you are not, go to Toastmasters and start delivering presentations constantly. Then make sure you learn how the network and the data center works. So if you are a student, it's completely covered. If you are not one of my students, I want you to do the following. I want you to buy a 16-core server with 128 gigs of RAM. All my students do it you do labs on our data center. And on these labs, I'm not concerned about you setting it up in S3 bucket or an EC2 instance. It's meaningless. Yes, I want you to do that as part of your training to know how, but I need you to do things, because what employers care about is that end-to-end system design, which the design is as follows. The design, and for students that are with us, they do the labs on our servers. It's included in our program, and our program is cheaper than the cost of the server. But if you're not with us, buy a 16-core server with 128 gigs of RAM and a minimum of 3 SSD drives in a RAID 0 configuration for performance. Then set up server virtualization with VMware ESXi. Then build some Docker containers or set up a Kubernetes cluster. Then set up an IP tables firewall. Then set up the Linux Apache MySQL PHP stack, because that's the basis of web apps. Then set up a firewall. Then build VPN concentrator. Then set up file sharing, such as NFS and server message block protocol. Then build Microsoft Active Directory servers to learn IAM. And then when you're done that, build a cloud. I'm not joking. Build the cloud. All my students do. They VPN into our data center and they build a cloud. Only then do you have the knowledge and the competency to know what systems you're moving to the cloud. That's the process, Yagan. We're highly successful in getting our people hired that way. You could train with us at an extremely low cost, pretty much the same cost as a single day's salary for a cloud architect. Or you can do these on your own. I've given you the information on how to do so. I just want to make sure you have the skills necessary to get the job that you actually desire. Okay, who has the next question? I think the next question is from Yetan. Hello, Yetan. I think I saw some questions from you, and I want to make sure we can answer them. Wonderful, Jagan. I'm so happy we're able to help. So, Yetan, You just want to ask a question where to start learning cloud computing and what prerequisites to learn the cloud. Okay, so Yetan, I think I probably answered this with Jagan. The cloud is a virtual network and a virtual data center. So if you want to learn cloud computing, you first need to know what is the cloud. And the cloud is a network and a data center that's been virtualized. So the first thing you must know is the network and the data center. I need to be very clear with this. If you just study the cloud and you don't know the network and the data center, not only will you never understand the cloud, but you will never be able to work, at least as an architect. If all you do, and 90% of what cloud architects do, are design systems, and these systems basically take the tech out of the network and the data center and move it to the cloud, it's called the lift and shift. Got 1,000 VM virtual machines in the cloud. In the data center, you're bringing these 1,000 virtual machines in the cloud, and guess what? Nothing changes. You've got a Kubernetes cluster in your data center. Guess what? You're going to move it to the cloud, and nothing changes. In your data center, you've got the following. You've got some load balancers, like some F5 load balancers. You know what you're going to have in the cloud? Load balancers, network and application, just like the data center. And the data center, you're going to have routers and routing. Guess what else you're going to have in the cloud? Routers and routing. When you connect your organization to the cloud, you need to use either VPN technologies, which is IPsec tunnels, or you need to use private lines, otherwise known as direct connections. Azure calls them Express Connect, same thing. Guess what? Same thing in the cloud. So nothing's really new about the cloud. It's just that a data center that's hosted somewhere else that's been virtualized so you can do things quicker, but nothing else is the same. The performance isn't greater on the cloud, it's actually less, although the cloud is awesome because of the agility and other things. So the cloud's nothing special. So first you need to know the network and the data center. Only after you know the network and the data center is it advisable to actually start doing the AWS training. Here's the thing. If you don't know a lot about storage and you've got very minimal storage knowledge, then how could you possibly, I mean this for a ream, if your knowledge on storage is so light, how are you going to design a storage architecture? You can't just say, hey, S3, you need to know what you're moving. We need to know what's going on with the customer's infrastructure. What are they using object storage for? Is it just software distribution? Are they using it as part of a data lake because of the metadata that's associated with it? How do you get good enough storage performance in the cloud? I can go to Best Buy and for $200 buy a hard drive with a 500,000 IOPS. That's not so easy to do on the cloud, and if so, you've got to either create a RAID array of EBS volumes or things like that, but you won't know about any of this unless you've worked on it. So first, learn the network and the data center. Then, Yaitin Bajaj, I need to know exactly what kind of cloud computing career you would like. And if you tell me that, I'll give you advice. If you want to be a cloud architect, the next piece of advice is going to be very different. If you want to be a cloud engineer, the next piece of advice will be very different. If you want to be the maintenance person, which is SysOps, the piece of advice will be very different. And if you'd like to do DevOps engineering, which is basically automation of software releases, again, this is not cloud computing at all, but it's a job people do on the cloud. It's a different path. Now, if you wanted to do big data architecture, again, it's a different path. So Yaitin, tell me exactly the job that you would love to do. And from there, I can guide you to the best approach. Because if I just guide you without knowing what you desire to do, all I'm basically giving you is a roadmap to someplace, but it might not be the ultimate destination that you desire. So if you want to give me that information, I'd love to help. So see what you can do to help me with those aspects. Oh, there you go, Yaitin. You said cloud engineer. So first, learn the network and the data center. Now, if you're going to be a cloud engineer, you're going to have a different skill set. See, we architects are designers and presenters. For a cloud engineer, you're going to have to learn very deeply how to configure all these cloud services. So you're going to have to be an expert configurator. This means you're going to also be really good with the management console, but also the CLI. Now, we cloud architects don't code, but cloud engineers do. So if you want to become a cloud engineer, you're going to make sure you need to have some programming knowledge. More specifically, probably JSON. You probably need to understand how YAML templates work. You're definitely going to need to Python for automation and things as a cloud engineer. So as a cloud engineer, I need you to focus deep on configuration, deep under the inner workings of how the technical services work. And I need you to get very hands-on with regards to configuration, hands-on with regards to scripting, hands-on when that could be bash scripts, it could be PowerShell scripts, it could be Python script, but also some JSON as well. And probably get pretty familiar with YAML templates, which could be used for things like, can be used in a lot of environments, but it can be used for templates to auto-deploy things, but it could also be used for containers and things like that. So I hope I answered your question, Yaitin, and for a cloud engineer, that's the way I would guide you. Now, who has the next question? Samir Shah. Samir Shah, thank you. Michael, yes, everything is done on our servers. Samir Shah, anyone on the fence of becoming an architect, trust this genius man. He will take you to the place. Thank you so much, Samir Shah. He is the finest instructor with multiple talents. Thank you so much. Just join him and it will guide you every step of the way. So Samir is one of my students. He joined a few weeks ago, and it's been a real honor working with Samir. So thank you so much, Samir, and I'm so happy to have you as one of our students, and I'm so happy to collaborate with you on so many things. So thank you so much. You're more than welcome, Jagan. I'm so happy I was able to help. Yes, we provide all the servers. So I've been recommending people really buy a server in their house for decades. So it used to be that I would tell my students, I'd say, look, I'll work with you, but you got to go buy this Xeon server. And, for my networking guys, we'd run things like EVNG or Cisco Viral. That way they had really good networking experience. And I used to make my students basically do everything in Linux for a period of time on these servers. And I made my students build everything. Look, here's the thing. As architects, we're not configurers. But when you go in an architecture interview, people need to know that you've got some experience. So, what qualifies as experience? I want you to really think about this and really go to the logic so you can understand what we do. If architects basically design systems, you can't really design what you don't know. And what I mean by this is, let's say you wanted to cook a souvlaki. I'm Greek, so we cook lots of souvlaki. So souvlaki is some chicken, you put it on a stick, you take some olive oil, some garlic, some oregano, potentially some people put a little paprika on it, a little bit of lemon juice, there's that. If you've never seen chicken and you've never seen garlic and you've never seen olive oil and you've never seen lemon juice and you've never seen a stick before, you're not making souvlaki because you can't. Well, that's what happens when people take the AWS certification classes and they expect to be an architect. They've learned the name of the service and how to configure it, but none of that prepares them for end-to-end system design. So we're very big on making sure you actually have the experience to know things. And what I mean by that is as follows. So because of this, and this is really, really important, we build the labs. So in our lab world, we're doing it for the following reasons. First, we're trying to get some experience on your resume. Two, we want you to actually understand the technology, the network, and the data center because you can't design without it. Three, we're trying to fit one of the hiring manager's things, which is basically hire people that go above and beyond. Four is we've got to prove to an employer you're technically competent. And five, we've got to get experience. And six, sometimes we've got to get past resume keyword scanners. Though we send our students and our graduates directly to the hiring manager, we don't send them to, what's the word I'm looking for? We don't send them to HR in most cases. So here's what we're doing, why we do these labs. So when you set up server virtualization on our labs, first thing you basically do is work with the main computing platform in the cloud, which is virtualization. If you're in AWS, they call it an EC2 instance. If you're in Azure, they call it a virtual machine. If you're in Google, they call it a compute engine. Guess what? It's just a virtual machine. So when you know this, it's much better. Next, what do? We have our students build containers. Why? Containers are the second computing platform on the cloud. So after this, what's next? So we have our people set up storage environments such as NFS, network file system sharing, which is used upon all Windows and Unix hosts throughout the world. Whether they call it NFS or EFS, it's the same thing. Then we have our students set up the server message block protocol basis. Why are we doing that? For the exact same thing. So these are the reasons why we have to do the labs, to do this, to prove to the employer that you've got what you're doing. And everything from building a cloud. Why is this so important? When you apply for a job and you show that you've built a cloud, the hiring manager can see what you've done. If there's a resume scanner along the way, again, we're in a winning environment. Why? Because the resume scanner, this gives you an opportunity to do this. My students put down, Go Cloud Architect, set up server virtualization, built Docker containers, built-in IP tables, UFW firewall, built-in open access SSH VPN concentrator, built and deployed a LAMP stack for web-based applications. These are really important things that we do. So after that, set up an organization-wide Microsoft Active Directory service for domain authentication, built in OpenStack Ansible Cloud. Now, this gives you experience. This gives you something that looks like a job. And this shows you're willing to go way above and beyond. So when someone else says, I know EC2, you could say, I can build a cloud. That's the reason we do these things. So Michael, ISSJ2. What time are the live group meetings? You finish work at 5 and you don't get home and you like to interact and ask questions. So the live group meetings are as follows. We have one group meeting, which is at 2 p.m. UK time, which goes from 2 to 5. And typically speaking, most people are able to attend this. If they can't, they attend for part of the question meeting and they ask as many questions as they possibly can, and then they watch the replay. I'm doing that with people all of the time. The Friday course starts at 5. The Friday course actually starts at 5 p.m. UK time. So, and it goes on until approximately 8 p.m. UK time. So those are the times we do this, because if we do a Tuesday course at 9 a.m. Eastern, it's 2 p.m. UK time. And if we do a Friday class at 12 p.m., it's 5 p.m. UK time. So I hope I answered your question there. So people ask lots of questions on these calls. At any point during the calls, even if they just pop in for a little bit, they can ask questions. And our students also can ask questions during in between classes. So via Slack. I hope I answered your question there. Who else has a question? You guys are all quiet this morning. Either I've been answering a lot of questions or you guys are holding back. Don't worry. Ask any questions you need. We're just here to help. Anything we can do to build your cloud architect career or help you with a cloud architect job or anything like that. Cloud J. Okay. Hey, Mike. Some of these cloud architect job descriptions make it seem like you need to know everything. DevOps, scripting, coding programs, security networking. This is kind of the joke of the world. And this is kind of that joke of the day amongst us employers and those of us that are architects. And this is also why most of us hiring managers don't use HR on the way to get our best employees. Okay, so here's what ultimately happens. For one thing, and there always have been, there's always been jobs that masquerade as architect jobs. So for a while, I think it was Subway that was calling their employees sandwich architects. You can go to the Home Depot and they've got a solutions architect, at least they used to. You can go to the store where they sell mobile phones, and they call their people solutions architects. Well, that's not architecture. So there are always going to be jobs, and I'll give you a perfect example of this. 20-some years ago, I worked for less than a month. I hated the company, so I literally just, spent less than a month there. But I worked for a very large gold partner to Cisco. And when I started, they called me a consulting systems architect. And I said, what's that? And they said, you're a consulting systems engineer, but it doesn't sound good, so we're going to call you an architect. I said, so am I going to do architect work? They're like, no. They're like, we need you to be a consulting systems engineer, but we bill you out at a large rate, and you need the architect title for that. And I went, okay, which is one of the reasons I left that job. But so there's always going to be some jobs that basically masquerade as architecture jobs. No, they're not architecture jobs. They don't pay architecture pay. It just kind of sounds cool. Kind of like, there are organizations where everybody's a manager or everybody's a VP, and it all looks and feels good, but it doesn't make them VP level. In fact, if you go to a big bank, everybody's a VP, but a director, but that's someone pretty serious. So, there's that. So let's make sure we understand this. Now, let's say, let's talk about these job descriptions. Now, for the most part, let's talk about what goes on with regards to job descriptions and with regards to HR. So I've consulted to all kinds of organizations, and a low performance organization like a cable company, they could be high performance, low performance. You can take it any way you want, but most people don't consider like the cable company, or for example, the satellite provider of our TV to be a high touch, really special customer experience, the way we would, for example, with something like a Cisco that basically will do anything it can to assist their customers. I'm not saying anything negative about these people, but some companies are just, excellence, number one, and customer service number two. So with regards to this, even at these cable companies, here's the thing. They get 3,000 applicants for a single job. 3,000 applicants for a single job. And when you're dealing with the world's best companies, you're dealing with more than 5,000 applicants for a single job. So let's look at the HR person. Really smart, highly educated, but not a technology professional. So how do you weed down 100,000 applications to a few that get seen by the hiring manager? You basically create some stupid job description that includes a list of 15 people's different careers. And in this ridiculous job description that has 15 different careers, you get a bunch of people that come in that are jack of all trades and masters of none. And then you send these people to the hiring manager like me. I interview them and they have zero substance at all. Yeah, I know a little this, little this, little this. I'm like, well, that's great. But, I need somebody that can actually do the job. So what do all hiring managers do like me? We say, sorry, HR. And then we call our favorite tech recruiter. And when we call our favorite tech recruiter, we say, look, I need an architect with design skills, emotional intelligence, good business acumen, knowledge of the data center, and knowledge of the network. I need this person to have CCIE level networking knowledge because I need them for infrastructure. The recruiter calls me back and says, I have a person for you. I then interview that person, and they have the right skill set because they're a CCIE, for example, with the Certified Solution Architect Professional and 10 years of networking. I then hire that person, offer the job to that person, and then as soon as I actually offer the job to that person, then I call HR and then I say, hey, by the way, HR, I'm hiring this person, and you're going to pay them this, which is 1.3 times the average cloud architect, because I think they're better than that. And that's the way it works. And I basically skip HR the entire time. Now I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you a link to an article that was written in CIO magazine. So who determines what goes on in an organization? The CEO sets the strategy for the organization. The CEO has a chief information officer that works for the CEO. And you know what they do? They help the CEO execute their strategy through the use of information technologies. So you want to know what goes on, who gets hired for what job? Simply do the following. Ask the chief information officer. And because architects like me know what architecture is, because we've worked as architects now for decades, I know what architecture is. That's all I've done. So there's organizations that actually determine industry trends, figure out what we need, and Gartner is one of them. I've worked with Gartner for decades now. Gartner will basically ask CEOs, what's your business trend? They'll go ask CIOs, what do you need in your technology world? They ask the decision makers, and here's what's going on. They asked decision makers, they basically said, look, these cloud architect job descriptions are stupid. They don't look like architects. So CIOs, what do you actually want? So here's what they told us. And this is published. I posted the link to this article. According to CIOs, they want someone that can lead the cultural change for cloud adoption. See, that's the leadership piece I keep talking about. Then they say someone can develop and coordinate a cloud architecture. Technical piece, that's systems design that I keep talking about. Then they say develop a cloud strategy and coordinate the adoption process. Cross between sales, leadership, and tech. Okay, what else do they say? Cloud architects should assist in helping find talent with the necessary skills. That's all leadership. Assess applications, software, and hardware. Again, assessing them. What do they look like? That's all architecture. That's tech. Creating a cloud record team. That's all leadership skills. Establishing best practices for the cloud across the company. Wow, that's leadership mixed with tech. Okay, selecting cloud providers and vetting third-party services. Leadership mixed with tech. Overseeing governance and mitigating risk. All leadership. Working closely with the IT security people to monitor privacy and develop incident response procedures. Well, that's leadership and tech. Manage budgets and estimate costs. All leadership and operate at scale. All leadership. So even the companies are telling you what they want. So all these ridiculous perpetuated cut and paste job descriptions are ridiculous. They don't have anything to do with what we actually do. So I hope I actually answered your question there. Pranay S. You did 2 certifications of Azure. Okay. and you're working as a full and wanted to move into DevOps and freelancing. So you're a full stack developer. That is absolutely fantastic, because if you want to do anything with DevOps, you need to be a programmer first. This is not a career where you just take a certification and you're done. So you need to become really good at DevOps tools. So I actually have a Get Your First DevOps Engineer program coming that I'm actually doing with Sandeep Das, and it's going to be out in the next few months. Here's the thing. You must be a good full stack developer, which it sounds like you are. You must get good at DevOps tools. Git, Jenkins, Spinnaker, and all the other tools. Get excellent with these tools. Then practice with these tools. Then I don't know what kind of certifications you have in Azure. The kind of certifications I look for are things like the Certified Solution Architect Professional as a basic intro on the AWS environment. And I look at the Azure Expert as also entry-level practice in the cloud. These certifications are so basic compared to actually reality of what we actually do in our jobs. For example, when I became a Cisco Certified Internet Expert, I read 75,000 pages to do so. When I became a Cisco Certified Network Professional, for example, that was kind of an intro to networking professional level certification. It was about 4,000 pages of reading. Certified Solution Architect Professional is like a whole 300 or 400 or 500. So realize these cloud certs are much easier than the other certs, because the cloud providers do 90% of the work. So make sure you've got something like an Azure Expert. Make sure you get the equivalent of the DevOps Professional with Azure, because if that's going to be the cloud you're going to work on. More importantly, make sure you become an expert on DevOps tools off the cloud. So make sure you do this. You can run some of these tools, even on a Raspberry Pi, but get used to using these tools. So those are the specific kind of tools. And then at some point, you probably should get used to the cloud DevOps tools. Things like Aviatrix that can help do some things on the networking that can be automated in some way, shape, or form. And that's more architecture, but still there's some DevOps in there. Things like Terraform to automate, the release of certain things and pre-deploy clouds, infrastructure as code. That's something else you should know. So for the most part, those are the kinds of things that you should know if you wanted to be a DevOps engineer and how to get there. If you have further questions, I'd love to answer them. In the meantime, if you can bring on the next question. I think I see one from Samir Shah. For folks who are in cybersecurity, I'm one of you guys, Samir. Focus, which would you suggest? Stick to become a cloud security architect, or do you become an overall cloud architect? Which has the most money? Well, Samir, I generally recommend our people, whenever possible, specialize. So you've got to have a baseline knowledge of the cloud, for every one of these roles. I personally recommend you specialize. So most of the students I have in my cloud architect career development program, I either have them pick, networking and learn extra about networking, or security and learn more about security, or big data plus cloud architect work. I always like my people to have a specialty. I don't like competing against people on an even playing field. I want an unfair competitive advantage. When somebody else is basically doing, the only thing they've done is a certification class, and they only know one thing, which is the generic name is cloud services. And you go there, and you've got a CISSP, and you've got a certified solution architect professional, and you actually know something. That's the key. The certifications are just part of the package, but you have to know something. Now you've got a much better job, because you're combining the full skill set of a security architect with the full skill set of a cloud architect, and you're getting laser focused on that one thing. The world pays specialists far more than generalists. That jack of all trades is the lowest paid employee in the world. I can tell you, in my architecture career, I earned 2 to 3 times more than the other architects, because I focused on a narrow subset. For 5 years, I focused on BGP and networking as an architect. For the next 5 years, I focused nothing on IP multicast video. And then after that, I focused on enterprise-wide system design. And then after that, when I really started doing well, I focused on healthcare technology architectures, which combined my ability to practice medicine with my business acumen, with my healthcare background, with my technology background. And that was where my career blossomed. So specialize, specialize, specialize. Specialize in an industry vertical, specialize on some technology such as security. Just specialize and be great at one thing and be better at it than anybody else, and you will have an incredible career that pays more that also gives you more career growth and opportunity. Hope I answered your question there, Samir. Okay, so love talking about careers and cloud computing careers and cloud architecture works. I should tell you very quickly the following. Tomorrow, we're going to have a free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. This is one of these webinars I absolutely love to do. Chris from my team just posted a link to it in the chat box. We will tell you on this webinar a lot of things that I think could be very valuable to your career. The first thing we'll do is we'll tell you how to leverage your guest experience to get hired. We'll tell you what hiring managers desire so you can get hired. Then we'll tell you the kinds of experience hiring managers desire. Then we'll talk about how to build the technical competency to get hired. Then we'll talk about how to skip HR to get your resume directly in the hands of the hiring manager. Then we'll talk about, how to sell yourself on the interview, what to do to your resume so you can get hired. So it's a free webinar. I love doing them. We do them twice a week. Please join us. Our goal is to give you the best cloud architect or our networking careers you possibly can have. So please let us know if we can help you, and we'd love to see you on our free webinar tomorrow. So, and actually, while we're at it, while I'm waiting for the next set of questions, I've been informed that I should say, if you're enjoying our content, please like this video. Please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell if you're not a new video, if you're not a subscriber. We are doing a tremendous amount of free content we're going to be launching and new shows. I've been bringing in experts like my friend Andrea Kaza last week, who was a delight to have there, where she talked about program management and customer success and delighting clients. She's someone I've worked with for decades now, and I'm going to be bringing in a lot more experts. So love these kind of things. So any questions, let's do it. Okay, so let's look at the next question or comment from Jesse Murdoch. Specialize within a specialization. Within a niche, exactly. That's what I choose. So if you can be the cloud security person for healthcare, you are the resource. You will build a brand. The whole world will know you. Guess what? Here's what I did. I became the healthcare technology architect. I wrote a paper called the Medical Grade Network. About 100,000 views of that document occurred. Not only that, guess what happened? I was requested to speak in every country in the world, constantly. I traveled 300,000 miles that year. I realistically not only did so well, everybody demanded me. I was getting calls from industry leaders all over the world. And you know what? 20 years later, the document that I wrote for a company called Riverstone Networks, I heard was being used by Cisco. I heard was being used by a lot of different attacks because, I wrote it to be seen. So by being such a narrow-focused, niche-focused expert, I get calls for these things constantly. I get calls every day from healthcare because people know me. I built a brand around it. So you can't build a brand when nobody knows what you are. You can build a brand by being an expert and an expert and an expert. So thank you. So GZ, thanks so much. I thought Andrea was fantastic too. I've known her forever, and I think she's really a stellar customer success executive, program manager, even systems engineering and architect manager. I've worked with her in all these capacities and think super highly of her. Richard Rich. If someone is starting down the cloud architect path, might I suggest Azure, GCP, or AWS for vendor-specific certifications? Well, this is an interesting one. So here's my recommendations. Learn the cloud. So if you know the network and the data center first, you know the cloud. Why am I so big on learning the cloud first? Here's the thing. When you know the cloud and you say, I need a virtual machine, or I say, I need a container, or I need a load balancer, it's so funny and irrelevant to me. I can go to any cloud provider and I know what I'm doing. Now, if all I learned is Elastic Load Balancer or S3, I only know AWS, which is not good enough. Let's face it, the world is all moving to hybrid clouds and multi-clouds. There were some decisions the cloud provider made. We love this cloud provider, but it scared a lot of businesses about putting all their eggs in one basket. Guess what? I would never put all my eggs in one basket anyway because it's kind of risky. So what happens if the cloud provider gets hacked? What happens if something happens? Spread your load. Diversify your risk. We do it in banking. We do it in investing, and we should be doing it in the cloud. And organizations and data centers have done this for decades. So I suggest learning the cloud. After that, which one do I suggest? AWS, Azure, or GCP? Well, I suggest AWS. Why do I suggest AWS? AWS is the largest cloud by far, and it has the most adoption. It's the number one player. Azure is the number two player. AWS salaries are typically higher than Azure salaries, so for those reasons, I like AWS. AWS is the majority cloud, so when it's your first cloud architect job and you're going at it, you need something that is the best. I hold the Google Professional Cloud Architect certification, and I think it's the best certification of all of them. They actually use some case studies in their exams and they try and test you a little bit on architecture. I love it. But, the GCP cloud is what, 5% of all cloud computing? So if you've got no background and you're trying to start and you study GCP and there's only 5% of the jobs that are available in GCP, it's a risky move. For me, as an expert, yes, it's great having the GCP. So, here's my kind of perspective. Become great at one. Start with, say, the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate. Skip the Cloud Practitioner. There's no benefit of the Cloud Practitioner. The Cloud Practitioner will basically take you 2 months for the average person to do it honestly. The Cloud Practitioner and the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate are effectively the same exam, plus or minus, 10%. The average salary of a cloud architect is $600 a day, and a good one earns easily double that. So it's $600 a day if it takes you 2 months to do the cloud practitioner, which has no career options whatsoever. By the end of that, you've lost $24,000 of earnings. So if you can do it 2 months faster, by just going straight to the associate and then straight to the professional, that's good. Our whole point of creating this cloud architect career development certification is as follows. To get our people hired as fast as possible. We like to save our people 6 months to a year and the time that it takes to get hired. So we can give people a really good return on investment. So just make sure that you're focusing on the right skills. So it's not the vendor, it's the knowledge of the cloud. Okay, the next question is from Michael ISSJ2. Is Sonic Firewall a good firewall to use in an enterprise environment? Michael, it is inappropriate for me to comment on certain vendors. I will tell you this. Big environments are going to use one of the following. They're going to use Cisco, they're going to use Palo Alto, they're going to use Checkpoint, or they're going to use Fortinet. In most cases, it's going to be one of those four. Those are the firewalls that I use in enterprise environments. I stick to one of those four based upon experience, knowledge, and then capabilities of the cloud of the vendors. So those are the four that I use, Michael. I won't say anything about SonicWall. I know they do a lot of work in the small office environment. They may do some in the big environment as well, but I stick with what we know. I stick with the companies that I find to be the best in security, which is Cisco, Fortinet, Palo Alto, and Checkpoint. Okay, who has the next question? I think it's from Tavdef Vero. Okay, so as a fresh certified AWS SIA, what kind of questions can one ask a career coach in order to get the best solution out of a coaching session? Well, as a freshly certified SAA, that doesn't tell me really anything. I mean, what goals do you want to do, Tavdef? I'm a career coach and I'm happy to get you there. But first thing I need to know is, what are your goals? The second thing I need to know is, what is your background? If I don't know your goals, and I don't know your background, so your background is your starting point. Your goal is your destination point. That is the most critical thing to know, because where you start will determine the path to get to your goals. So if you want to give me that, I'm happy to answer these questions. But, as a career coach, there's really nothing they're going to know until they know what your goals are. So they need to know what your goals are short term, what your goals are long term. I mean, what do you even want to be? Do you want to be a CEO of a company? Do you want to be a cloud architect? Do you want to be a business leader? See, those kind of things are necessary to kind of help you. Michael, ISSJ2. For CCNA, should you download Packet Tracer and do those labs for the exam? Well, here's what Packet Tracer is. Packet Tracer is a protocol analyzer, which we used to call a sniffer. And, every cloud architect needs to know what's going on in the network and be able to look at it. So being able to use a sniffer or a protocol analyzer to try and figure out the kind of traffic that's going across the network, and learning about the IP headers and seeing the ARP broadcast, the DNS request, is a wonderful experience, and everybody should be doing that. It's no different than if you're on a Unix machine and you do a sudo, you do a super user or a sudo, and then you do a TCP-I and you specify the interface, and you get to see all the stuff walk across your screen. Pretty much same kind of thing. And Packet Tracer is just one of that. So for the CCNA, here's what we're supposed to do. Follow the Cisco curriculum. And with that, they're going to set up OSPF, they're going to do some NAT, they're going to set up some VLANs, they're going to set up some trunking protocols. These are really good skills. So there's that. But, Packet Tracer, that's kind of a everybody kind of knowledge skill to be able to debug what's going on. So I strongly recommend that as well. And Packet Tracer is even free. So it's not that often you get access to extremely good tools for free. And it's one heck of a really awesome protocol analyzer. Use it all the time. I used to use other sniffer software, which was thousands and thousands of dollars. I like Packet Tracer more. It's that good. Who has the next question? And Miss Tav Duff, if you've got more questions, I can go back and answer that. Richard Rich, I would say skip the cloud practitioner entirely. If basically you're spending $600 a day studying, because that's an average salary of a cloud architect, those 2 months that are wasted passing that cloud practitioner, which offers no career practitioner whatsoever, I view as $24,000 of wasted money, because the opportunity cost of either studying this versus something else is really working against you. So it's not one of those things that I really recommend that somebody actually does any kind of any kind of cloud practitioner. I don't even think it has anything to do with what's the word I'm looking for? Cloud architecture at all. To me, the cloud practitioner is great if you want to learn how to sell AWS services. And let me, don't get me wrong, most vendor certifications by all vendors are kind of assisting the vendor by making sure you kind of know more about their certifications, so you're more likely to use them. And that's good. Vendors do that intentionally. They create a certification environment. It basically gives you more access to more interviews because it shows some degree of credibility in this field. And then after you do that, it's pretty darn elegant. So we absolutely love that. So just wanted to kind of make sure that we answered those questions for you. Who else has another question? Yeah, GZ, yeah, the cloud practitioner is really for sales. Perfect thing for a sales rep. Although I'd still rather see the sales rep just do the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate. It's a relatively basic thing. Now, I say it is basic. I want to make this real clear. Just because something's basic and intro level does not mean the exam is going to be easy. AWS will find a way, as will every vendor, to make simple things extremely challenging on an exam by the way they actually work out the questions. So just kind of keep that in mind. All these certifications are going to be hard, and that's why we only want you to focus on the ones that are going to give you career opportunity, not just those that basically are there. Michael ISSJ2, you're struggling just to read the CCNA book. Any tips on how to guide it through the super books with a laser focus? Well, Michael, I'm debating whether to do a free CCNA class online. There's a good chance I'm going to do one very soon. If you're one of our students, you will learn a tremendous amount about networking. To put my networking experience into context, my Cisco Certified Internet Expert number, my CCIE number, is 7417. That's how long ago it was. I was like the 6,000th person to actually pass that exam, because we started at Cisco counting at 1028 because we thought it was cool because it was 2 to the 10th. So, I've been doing this for decades now, and I absolutely love it. So, hope I was able to help you with those answers. Ahmad Q, good to hear from you, Ahmad. Just a thought, would a cloud architect ever get automated? Well, here's the thing. I personally prefer architecture careers versus engineering careers for the following. Engineering things can be easily automated. Real easy to automate. In that DevOps engineers, for the most part, can take away maybe 10 other people's jobs by doing things in such an automated way. And some of the sysops people can also automate a lot of people's jobs and automate the maintenance and make it also much, 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 what do you call it? Much, 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 more efficient. So a lot of these engineering roles, so specifically the more junior engineering roles and the configuration roles, I see that stuff going away over time because we can automate these things with infrastructure as code tools. Now, architecture is another story. Somebody still needs to meet with that client. Somebody still needs to determine that client's strategy. Someone needs to determine what the customer needs to do. That is human knowledge. That is human intervention. That cannot be replaced. Since part of the architect thing is this, meeting with that client and advising that client and being a partner to take that customer's business challenges and business goals and translate to a technology solution, you can't automate that, at least not yet. And that will be really, really, really hard to automate. Even voice to text and speech is still not accurate after 2 decades of it. So that's going to be really hard. Human judgment is great. Medicine needs a doctor for the human judgment. Architecture is kind of like the doctor world. So it's the same thing. I know both because I practiced medicine long before I moved into tech. It's the same job. We meet with clients, we ask some questions, we make an assessment, and we come up with either an architecture prescription. It's the same job. So, I don't see that, but I see a lot of these engineering roles being that. And also, not only can the engineering roles be done, we don't need our engineers to be local. Well, what's the point? So I don't need physically to have an engineer that I can look at them. If they work from home in the US, if they work from Bangalore, if they work from Beijing, it's irrelevant to me as an organization. So engineering jobs, I see being more outsourced and more automated. Architecture jobs, because you need to be there, well, I don't see that going anywhere. And that's one of the reasons I like to focus on these skills. Okay, the next question is from Zoe, MD. So Zoe MD said, can I enter cloud computing after finishing college with a practitioner certification? So Zoe MD, I'm going to be completely honest. I don't think the cloud practitioner certification will help you get any job other than a sales job. I would also say that fresh out of college with an AWS certified solution architect professional, it's still going to be extremely challenging for you. But I can tell you how to be hired, Zoe MD. So Zoe MD, can you please tell me exactly what job you actually like, and then I can help you build a career plan. With that, I'll be able to give you some good advice and tell you how to get to the job as fast as possible. But unless you want to move into sales, that cloud practitioner is not going to really be enough to get any kind of job right now. I'm sorry to say it. Even the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate is not enough to get a job unless you've got 15 to 20 years experience, specifically in networking or other things, or are a data center architect or a cloud or a network architect or something like that. So Zoe MD, you come back, tell me your goal, and I will be super happy to help you. Michael ISSJ2, I think I know who you are from some of those. So under those circumstances, then we're super excited to work with you. Zoe MD, you would like to be SysOps or cloud security someday. So Zoe MD, what's your level of coding experience? So what is SysOps first, Zoe MD? And I want to make sure you know this. SysOps is probably the lowest paid of all the cloud jobs, one of the lowest paid. SysOps is operations. So the SysOps people are maintenance people. They're going to sit in a NOC. They're going to be staring at screens. And what's going to ultimately happen is you're going to be the person that scripts things, to automate things, patches, those kind of things, making sure that softwares are upgraded. So if you want to do something like that, this is a great thing. And we need people to maintain it. Just understand that one's going to be the lowest paid. The reason it's one of the lowest paid is it's farthest away from the customer. The closer you are to the customer, the closer you are to the business, the higher pay will be. The SysOps people are going to be very technical. So learn the cloud, maybe get a certified solutions architect professional, then maybe study SysOps and learn operations. So learn Python scripting, learn Bash scripting, learn PowerShell scripting. Make sure you understand, all those cloud formation kind of things, because these people do it. Terraform would be a good set of skills for you to know for these kind of jobs. Linux and knowledge, how to basically write scripts that are going to pull information, pipe and grep and output, hugely required for some of these things. So there's that. And you can get there. Now you say, or cloud security someday. So if you study sysops and then you want to do cloud security, it's kind of like you're preparing to be a cat when you really want to be a dog, because the careers are so different. So if you want to do cloud security, I would do the following. First thing I would do is I would get that certified solution architect professional, because kind of that's our minimum level, entry level certification of practice. And we view the certified solution architect associate as like 10% of what's necessary. We build real architects. Our people can go work anywhere. They can deal with systems that have 200,000 employees, that have remote, 20,000, 40,000 subnets, hundreds of thousands of servers. That's what our students learn, because we're dealing with big architectures. We're creating cloud computing professionals. So that's what we do. So if you want to do cloud security, again, get that minimum level certification, which is the Certified Solution Architect Professional. Get yourself some security certification, such as a CEH Master, which is a CEH with a practical and lab, or get yourself a CCSP. CISSP would be great, but that's one of the more architecture-related certifications. And if you're this new, probably might not be good enough. Marry those two things and learn security. Learn about firewalls, learn about IDS, IPS systems, learn about access control lists on routers and switches, learn about private VLANs, 802.1x authentication, learn for real about IAM, and it's far, far, far more deeper than they cover in the AWS Certified Solutions Architect Professional. Understand, Active Directory in depth, and all the packages that can support additional logging in addition to just the authentication authorization, because, Active Directory is a little weak on the accounting side. But it's a great, 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 highly robust process otherwise. Play with firewalls, IDS, IPS systems, VPN concentrators, access control lists. Get used to endpoint protection, like host-based firewalls. Get used to anti-malware, and then you can do this. So Zoe, MD, I hope I answered your question. You can do either, but it's making sure that you focus for the right career. And if you want to tell me more about each one, I can help you that as well. I just want to make sure you understand exactly how to go and what the goal is, because that way we can build your roadmap. Okay. And Zoe, MD, please feel free to ask further, more deep questions. I just try to give everybody as much information about their careers as possible so they can make the best, most informed decisions. Michael, I definitely know will give you a very strong foundation in architecture. But all students in our program get networking knowledge that's somewhere between the CCNA and the CCNP. And we view that as the minimum level of network knowledge to be a cloud architect. So all of our students get that. And most of our students get CISSP level security while they're in our program, because we need to know that you know networking and security that well. So that's kind of the depth that we go. Look forward to working with you, Michael. So Chris, if you can bring up the next question. And if you're enjoying this session, if you can please leave a like or a comment or share this with others. So Hassan Tahir, you have a question. Peter Lincoln, so thrilled to have you joining us today. Welcome. Please feel free to ask any questions that you have. Now, Hassan Tahir, I think you have some questions. You're working, hope you're doing good, doing wonderful here. I hope you're doing as well. You're working as a junior DevOps for now for 9 months. Can I tell you which work I need to get a great job? So here's the thing. There's 2 approaches, Mr. Tahir, to get a better job. Approach 1, do it on the soft skills, emotional intelligence, communication side. That one has unlimited potential to get deeper tech knowledge. I recommend you do both. So I recommend you getting much better with all the DevOps tools. I don't know which ones you're using. That will help you. So all those DevOps tools, from Git to Jenkins to all these tools, become a master at these tools. Make sure your coding is exceptionally good, because you need that for these tools as well. Build depth of knowledge. Really master something and become great at it. Learn it on the cloud and off the cloud. Then, focus on your communication skills. Because when you communicate better, people, and you can explain the things you're working on better, people will think you're smarter. Even if you're not, they'll think you're smarter. So when you communicate well, people are like, wow, that person's great. Next, work on some executive presence. The bigger you seem, the more trustworthy you are, the more command presence you have, the more people will think of you. Guess what? The more people think of you, the more promoted you get. When you stand tall with good posture. This is some of the world's saddest truth. Tall people make more money than short people. Guess what? You can't change your height. But look at my height now versus look at my height now. So they're good. So work on those Terraform things. Get great at it. Look at Python, get great at it. Ansible, great. GitLab, Jenkins, Spinnaker, all of it. All of it. So, but you got to be good at it. You got to be great at it. And, CloudFormation is good as well. I'm much a bigger fan of things like Ansible. Bigger fan of things like Terraform, because that's vendor agnostic. I really, really love those kind of platforms because you can use it for the multi-clouds which are going to be out there. So CloudFormation is great too, but I really prefer Terraform. But build those communication skills, build your business acumen, build your presence, and that's the key to really boosting your engineering career. The better people perceive you, the stronger people perceive you, the more people go out there and say, I need this person on my team. That is when you start getting these great jobs. And that's why I highly recommend these things. So that would be my advice. Get great at these things, but also work on your communication skills, your presentation skills, your presence. It will make people take you more seriously. It will raise your salary so darn fast you can't imagine it. I had a manager say, Mike, you know the difference between a $100,000 engineer and a $300,000 engineer? And he did this to me almost 20 years ago. I said, tell me. And he said, as technical as you are, the only way to get you to your real goals is to work on communication. He sent me to leadership training, communications training. All in all, $250,000 was spent on my education to teach me how to communicate better. This is what happened. My career shot up like a rocket ship. I got 3 promotions in 3 years. It was more than 6 figures of a bonus, because those are the skills that separate you from the top. So, thrilled we were able to answer your question. Hassan Tahir. Let's bring up the next question. So the next question I think is from Kanal. Hey, Mike, I have learned AWS and very soon planning to go for the Certified Solution Architect Associate. That's great, Kanal. You're actually from a non-IT background and this is your first technical job. That's great. Welcome, Kunal. Welcome to the world of cloud computing. Do you know what my first job was? I was a nurse practitioner practicing internal medicine. I even had my own office. So I went from nurse practitioner to architect, and it was really, really, really great. So made a massive difference for me. So I started that, and my other career basically helped me with my tech career. Here's the job of a doctor, nurse practitioner, physician assistant. Meet with a client, ask the client some questions, assess the client physically, like listen to the heart, their lungs, make a diagnosis, and give them a plan, which is usually a prescription. Here's the job of the architect. Hi, client, how are you today? Tell me, client, what are your business goals? What are your pain points? What are your competitors doing? What's your regulatory environment like? What are you trying to achieve? Go back home. Evaluate their systems, and then say, here's the solution for you. So doctor meet with a client, architect meet with a client. Doctor asks some questions, architect asks some questions. Doctor evaluate the patient system, architect evaluate the organization's tech systems. Doctor make a diagnosis, architect make a diagnosis or hypothesis. Doctor write a prescription, architect, here's your architecture, here's the solution to your problem. Same thing. And guess what? In medicine, we got to convince our patients to take the medicine. And guess what? As architect, we got to convince the client to adopt our solution. So it is the same thing. So welcome to our world, Kunal. If you like any advice on career transition, if you tell me your starting point and your goals, I'd be thrilled to help you. But welcome. You can make this transition. I've done it, and I've helped many, many people over the years. And I think this is really great. So if you've got more questions, we'd love to answer them. So Sanchit Singh, that's a friendly name I haven't heard in a little while. Currently preparing for the CCNA cert. Wonderful. And you've done our associate course. Would your boot camp for AWS professional too? Yes, please do that as well. Would you recommend your course before Red Hat? And the answer is yes, if you want to be a cloud architect. Here's the thing, Sanchit Singh. First, my course will do the following. It will give you such strong and deep fundamentals that when you actually see these cloud things, it's like, yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know that. To give you an example of how good, when you have good fundamentals and how much it means, I had said to my friend, I had said, I want to test the validity of our AWS certification preps. And he says, okay, good. He said, how do you suggest this? And I said, I'm going to go take the Google Professional Cloud Architect book. And he said, because we wrote a book on passing the Certified Solution Architect Associate professional exam? I said, yes. I said that, for example, if our AWS documentation is good, you should be able to pass an Azure Expert or a Google Professional Cloud Architect book exam. And my buddy said, you're crazy. So I bought the Cybex book. I bought it on a Friday, showed up from Amazon. I didn't read it until Saturday and Sunday, and Monday I had the exam scheduled. That exam, I passed it basically I was done it within 45 minutes. It was nothing in an exam. Why was it nothing in an exam? Because I had the fundamentals to know. So if you're in my organization, Sanchit, first, we're going to teach you the network and the data center, which is the cloud. In the process, you're going to get deep knowledge of the network and deep knowledge of Linux, plus the cloud and the data center. Then when you do these certifications, they're going to be silly easy. Then when you do things on Linux, you're already going to have a background. So when you're done and you finally do get these certifications, you're ready to be hired as opposed to ready to start your training. So my recommendation is to work with you as soon as possible. The sooner we work with you, the sooner you graduate. The average salary of a cloud architect is about $600 a day. A good one earns easily double that. So because of that, those are the reasons I recommend starting with us as fast as possible. Work doing the same kind of program with us on your own before you worry about some of these other things. Knowledge first, certification second. Sanchit, I hope I answered your question. Chris from my team will obviously put a link to the program. He can. I'll put our number if you've got any questions in this chat box. I'd love to work with you. So, Sandra Rajan, is it good to go high-pay private cloud VPC provisioning job or quite less salary as a system lead position? So, I'm not exactly sure what you mean. If you're trying to basically say one job where all you do is configure VPCs, or something else that's a systems leadership position, Sundari, you got to tell me what your career goals are. If your career goals are leadership, then I'd take the leadership position, depending upon the salary. Or, if your goal is more on the networking side, then I'd probably do something with VPC provisioning. So I don't know how much salary differential we're talking about. I also don't know which kind of organizations we're talking about, big ones versus small ones. I don't know what kind of growth exists in the organizations. So if you give me some of this information, then I'm happy to answer your questions. But I generally like people to take jobs that lead to their next part of their career. So if you want to be a manager and there's something in the leadership path, it's a great stepping stone. But I need to know what you need, and then I can give you better information there. I'm not sure what you mean by MNC. So if you let me know what you mean by MNC, I'll answer that. In the meantime, I'm going to answer the next questions. You've been learning about AWS cloud services for... Questions are moving around. Okay, so Sandra, VP Provision Bank Cloud Systems lead for an MNC. I still don't know what you mean by MNC. So come back and answer that. Because the thing about using acronyms is they can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. So I don't want to make assumptions and make mistakes. So Chris, if you bring up the next question while we're waiting for the answer to MNC. Apologies. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, I have this beautiful cat named Cindy. She's the best thing ever. She sleeps on my feet, she sleeps on my chest, and I'm highly allergic to her, but I love this cat, so I'm always sneezing. Apologies. Okay, so Peter Lincoln. And yes, cat alert. There is a cat. She's like this. She thinks she's a lion. She chases everything and is a little bit spoiled because she eats shrimp, scallops, and tuna a couple times per day. But let's go to Pierre Lincoln's question. You've been learning about cloud services for a year and looking to write the Solution Architect Associate exam. Good. What is my part to land a job? Okay, so to land a job, you're going to have to do the following. First, we're going to have to get you really, really, really competent, which means I need to know which kind of AWS job or cloud job you want, because it's going to be a different path to become an engineer versus an architect. Now, if you're talking about an architecture job, because that's most people come to us for, the first thing we need to do is build you network and data center competency. If you don't know the network and the data center, there's no chance that you could potentially work as a cloud architect. And that's why 99% of people that pass the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, a year later, they're still sitting there looking for a job, because you must know. So first, learn the network and the data center. Then truly learn the cloud. What do I mean by that? You need to know networking. What do I mean by this? You need to know IP addressing and IP system addressing system design, NAT. And that's just not used to connect to the internet. OSPF and other IGPs, you must understand BGP plus BGP traffic engineering. You must understand VLANs, VLAN trunking protocols, things like 802.1q tagging, Q and Q tagging, Ethernet over MPLS, QoS, just to name a few. You probably should know some HSRP or VRRP, because you're going to be using this in your connections to the cloud as well. Then, knowledge of systems, knowledge of servers and server virtualization, knowledge of containers. This is all critical, basically important things. So after we know that, then what's next? You need to learn load balancers, firewalls, VPN concentrators. You need to learn the DNS system. You need to know the IP protocol in depth, everything from ARP to ICMP to TCP and the sliding window to UDP and when it's used. Real-time transport protocol, super essential to use. Active Directory, absolutely critical skill. Then you need to understand file storage in depth and the types of things like server message block storage as well as NFS. Then after that, you need to know block storage, and it's not enough to know that block storage is EBS. That doesn't even scratch the surface of what you need to know about block storage. Then you need to know all about object storage and its use cases specifically related to the metadata and how object storage works. Then you need to know how a cloud works. I encourage you to build a cloud. Then after that, I encourage you to do what we consider to be the first and minimum entry-level certification, which is the Certified Solution Architect Professional. Then we encourage you to get something either from networking or Linux to try and show that you're more well-rounded on the infrastructure side. From there, you need to focus on communication skills. How to deliver a presentation to executives. What does the CEO care about? What does the CFO care about? What does the CIO care about? Then, how to deliver a presentation that will delight people. Then we have to talk about how to deliver a persuasive presentation, because you got to sell the products. Then we need to teach you how to negotiate both business deals as well as salaries, how to interview, and then how to present technology in the way that non-technical people can understand. Those are the minimum skill sets. The certification piece at the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional is 10%. The other things that we're talking about at the other 90%, and it's the other 90% is so critical. That's why we're so successful in creating architects, as in the certification people just sit on the sidelines for forever. So you can get these jobs. You can do anything you want. You just have to prepare for them. So I hope I answered your question. And if you give me more information about your career, I can help you even further. Okay, Chris, if you can bring up the next question, please. Okay, you mean you were a multinational corp which gives medical and emergency services worldwide. You need to manage AWS and on-premise infrastructure managing along with the service provider. Okay, so here's my answer to that. I don't really, so you've got experience in infrastructure and administration. What infrastructure? Is it networking? Is it servers? Is it Linux? You need to be real specific. So Rajan, these are the kind of communication skills that are really critical for the architect. Be able to get something to the point where it's really easy to understand. So I'm not really sure what you mean by infrastructure, because infrastructure could be the network, it could be the servers, it could be anything. And I don't know what you've done with that. So have you been a CCIE where you're designing BGP policies? Have you set up servers? Have you worked with VMware? Give me some more information. I'll be there. Almost probably would almost just do these on Zoom so that you can actually come off and have full dialogues and conversations. And maybe we'll do some of those too coming soon. So I'm going to wait for you to give me some more answers and then I can answer it. So from peer linking, how long to take this training? Okay, so for peer linking, what I tell people is those people that have worked in tech before, it's about 16 weeks and 250 hours of training to get someone hired, and it's relatively easy to do. For people that have no tech background, it's about 500 hours of our training, about 6 to 8 months. We do it all the time. We're highly successful at this. It's the same price whether it's 250 hours or, basically speaking, the $500 plan for people that don't have is how long we keep people in the program and how many things we have them do. So it's about 4 to 8 months, depending upon your background, peer linking, to get you a good, high-paying cloud architect job. From the time we take you in to the time we make sure you know the network, the data center, all the infrastructure, have the business skills, the design skills, to the point where we can call our recruiters on behalf and say, please hire this person. So I hope I answered your question. Okay, so now, Sandra, Rajan, we've got a little bit of experience. You've been working on servers. So server administration, typically Windows and Linux, is as follows: setting up users, patching systems, dealing with host files, dealing with some cron tabs and things like that. Is that what you've been doing? Because if so, then we know exactly what you're doing, and then we know exactly how to get you there. So if you know server administration, I'd say that's about an additional 10%. So server administration, let's call that 10%, but realize, and then we can say if you had the certified solution architect professional, we'll call that an additional 10%. So it's still going to be critical for you to know the network, because that is the primary infrastructure. Without the network, nothing works. I'm going to tell you, there's not a lot of Windows servers in the cloud. In general, there's not a lot of Windows servers at all when you're dealing with big business. Windows servers you will find from Microsoft Exchange all the time. And you will find them from Microsoft Active Directory. The majority of servers, for cost purposes and security by obscurity reasons, are going to be Linux systems, plus they're light and and they're free for the most part, unless you're using Red Hat Enterprise Linux or SUSE Enterprise Linux, what you're going to see in most organizations. So we still need to build the network knowledge, the routers, the routing protocols. We still need to work on the NAT. And that's not just to connect to the internet. We're still going to work on all those layer 2 things like the VLANs. From here, we probably hope that you have some VMware experience from your Windows and Linux experience, because if so, that means you've got some virtualization knowledge. I'm assuming you know how to do that. Ideally, you have some knowledge of containers, but we're still going to have to build in that storage environment unless you've been working with fiber channel and storage area networks, like object storage networks and things like that, block storage networks. So we're going to have to get that. You probably know a lot about Active Directory, which is pretty helpful. You probably have some knowledge of IAM from working with Active Directory, which is going to be helpful. Then we're going to have to get the business acumen. We're going to have the business acumen, the communication, the presentation skills, all those kinds of things, and you'll get there. So realize you've got a good starting point. Get to that certified solution architect professional. That, realistically speaking, will get you, and that'll get you to 20%. Business acumen skills, executive presence, communication skills, all that will get you about 70%. And then the rest of it is learning end-to-end system design, the network, and all these other devices such as load balancers, firewalls, IDS, IPS systems, and how they work. That'll get you to your goal. So I hope I answered your question there. Peer Lincoln, let me get to yours, and then I'll go back to Michael's question. You have a background in tech, so 16 weeks is great. Our program cost is about a single day's pay for the average cloud architect. Look, I'm very blessed. I don't need to work. I had an incredible architecture career. So we're pretty much offering a $25,000 course for $1,000 list price. And realistically speaking, we give people a 20% off coupon. So our course is about $800 for the entire 16-week program. We did that because basically we're covering our cost plus a little bit. We're kind of a charitable mission. I was in a massive accident and couldn't walk for 3 years, like literally at all. And then I lost the use of my left hand. And I spent 6 hours a day in physical therapy. And it was my commitment to myself that if I ever got better to the point where I could walk again, and I still struggle each day, I would create a training environment that would be inclusive, that would let all people from all over the world be able to get a world-class education, things that would cost them $20,000 to $50,000 somewhere else, and do it for basically a day's pay. So we charge $800 for our 250-hour program where we're giving people a server access. We're running like a $5,000 emotional intelligence course in there, and a $2,000 interview prep course inside of there, and a $2,000 presentations course in there, and a $10,000 actual architecture training thing in there. And we do this all for a single day's pay. So we're really cheap because we do that via intention. Who has the next question? Kenny Zhang, it's always good to see you here. Welcome. Michael ISSJ2, how did I transition from a network engineer with Cisco to be an architect? Well, it's not actually the way you would think. So I started my engineering career and I was good. I mean, I loved it. I was really good. I went from never seeing a router to being a CCIE or Cisco certified internet expert, something where they recommended 5 to 10 years experience in literally 6 months from no background whatsoever. So there was that. Now, here's what I will tell you. Going from there, I did the following. I had a great job and I wanted to move into architecture. So I started teaching the engineers more things. I started to pretend that I didn't know as much about any individual technology solution. I changed my dress from what the engineers were wearing to what the sales executives were wearing and what the directors were wearing. I then mirrored the communication skills to that of the director or the VP instead of that of an engineer. When there were opportunities to deliver a presentation or training, I did it. I had business acumen skills because I had done half of an MBA. I had a tremendous amount of emotional intelligence skills from practicing medicine. I've studied communication skills, sociology, economics, finance, and behavioral skills for years. I'm at least 50% behavioral scientist. I've also had about $250,000 of education on leadership, emotional intelligence training, presentation skills training, and business writings training, and as well as an MBA. So those were the things that I actually used to develop this system to get lots of people to become architects. But for me, realistically speaking, I had to pretend to be less technical. I had to pretend to be end-to-end design as opposed to being the BGP expert that I was. I had to communicate differently. I had to dress differently. And pretty much overnight, I went from being a senior engineer to being a lead architect, and that was it. So it was all business communication skills, all executive presence, emotional intelligence, ROI modeling that took me from engineer to architect. That's the main difference. And people that want to become architects that don't focus on these skills are going to be frustrated because you can't get these jobs without them. The certification providers who provide what I consider to be worthless training, name of a service and how to configure it, is totally unrelated to our jobs. It's not even 1% related. So, that's how I did it. I became an expert in the business and an expert at the end-to-end design and an expert at solving customer problems. And I focused on different communications. So that's kind of one of those things. Hope I answered your question. Chris, you want to bring up the next question, please? Oh, so Srikanth, here's what I will say. We bought every one of the training packages that we can find And we were so horrified that we decided to start this company. I was 100% disgusted by every course that I saw. So I bought these courses. And when I bought these courses, here was what I saw: the name of the service and how to configure it. In fact, I bought 3 of the best-selling courses, all from the same continent where one of the main providers was. And when I bought these, I bought them for a friend. And I said, look, I don't have a lot of time, but I will get you to your goals. You watch these courses, and every Friday we'll spend 2 to 4 hours together. And the person that I said this to called me back after 2 days and said, Mike, I built an EC2 instance and set up an S3 bucket. What is it, Mike? And I said, what do you mean, what is it? And I watched these training sessions. And all it was name of a service, how to configure it. Name of a service, and how to configure it. There was nothing related to design. There was nothing related to how the systems work. It was 100% there. I was so horrified because I knew this. I knew there was not a single person that could ever get hired from those types of training programs that you suggested. Not a single one, unless they had 20 years experience in tech. I was so upset that I then interviewed 1,000 AWS certified people. And they were all graduates of these places. I couldn't hire all but 2 of the 1,000 people that I interviewed. The 2 people that could were already working as solution architects, but wanted to get better promotions, and they became my students. So I've interviewed 1,000 people that have done these courses, and not a single one is hireable, because the skills that are actually going on, realistically speaking, are just not the same. So when you ask me this question, would there be real-time practical sessions? The answer is yes. Twice per week, we do live architecture training where we work with systems that basically have the equivalent of 10 to 20 years experience that our students do. Our students design live on real-time organizations using big data, 40,000 subnets, 200,000 remote access employees, hundreds of thousands of servers, end-to-end big data environments, things that exist in real life. Our students work on multiple clouds. So under these circumstances, that's the way we build our systems. So that's why our training is not like Linux Academy, Udemy, Cloud Academy, etc. We are completely different. We don't use anything like that. We do live sessions twice a week for 3 hours where you ask questions, you get involved, and you do real system design. Because cloud architects design, we don't configure, we design. Then in between the live sessions, we have real projects to do. We will have you present technology because companies need experienced people. We're going to give you real experience, valuable experience. Like you said, companies want experienced people. You're right. So our course will make you experience as if you had 5 to 10 years if you follow through with dedication. You will be designing systems. You will be building clouds from scratch. You will be building all the technologies that make the cloud possible, and you will build the cloud. So you will design systems for organizations that people that only have 5 to 10 years experience will have. You will have a portfolio of experience where set up server virtualization for enterprise-wide computing, built and deployed containers for microservice-based applications. You will have the ability to say on your resume, set up the LAMP stack for web, the Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP stack for web applications. You will be able to see created IP table firewalls for organization-based security, implemented and deployed open access VPNs for remote access employees, because you'll be building this on my system. You will be able to say you've designed and set up network file system storage for file sharing among servers. You'll be able to say that you set up the server message block storage. You'll be able to say that you created and deployed a Microsoft Active Directory solution for enterprise-wide domain authentication. Then you'll be able to say built and deployed an OpenStack Ansible cloud to improve an organization's ability, agility, and computing performance. Then you'll be able to say federated OpenStack Ansible cloud with this. Now, look at that. Now look at someone else that basically did one of these courses and says, I set up a website, a WordPress site. No one cares. No one's going to pay you $150,000 to $300,000 a year to do that. I can hire someone for $15 an hour to do that. It's simple skills. So our training is exactly opposite. So that when you get done, you've got things that you can put under the Go Cloud Architects Experience section that looks and feels like a job, so you can get hired. And none of these other organizations touch the things that architects need, which is design, which we teach. And none of them focus the business acumen to do an ROI model. None of them teach you how to present to the CEO versus the CIO versus the CEO. None of them teach you how to interview. None of them teach you how to negotiate a higher salary. None of them teach you anything necessary to be an architect. All they teach you is the name of the service and how to configure it. And that's why we're so different. That's why I came out of retirement to create this program. And that's why our program is so cheap, because 90% of our students come from these programs, or they come from the colleges and universities where people are doing a master's in cloud computing, can't get hired, and then we teach them. That's where our student population comes from these places and these organizations. People who spent 6 months to a year or 2 years trying to get a job, and then they come to us, and then we can fix them real fast. So hope I answered your question. That's why we're very different than these companies, and that's why I came out of retirement to do this. So No Street has a question. And the question is, hi there, does it make sense to do an internships while working up to the Cloud Architect Professional cert? At the moment, you're preparing for the associate. Well, if you can get a valuable internship, then the answer is great. Here's the thing. What kind of an internship can you really get, though? And here's the thing. I want you to understand why we used to do internships, and I loved it. So, as follows. We used to hire interns. They would come. They would learn the junior level things, like racking and stacking servers, for example, cabling them in to get a feel for the data center, installing an operating system, basically adding users to Microsoft Active Directory, junior level skills that we would do in an internship. Guess what? In today's world, I don't need any junior level people. So all those fresher jobs, those introductory level jobs, they're gone. Why is that gone? What's going on with market forces? Here's what happened. First thing that happened is we went from the network in the data center to the cloud. Now the cloud's just a virtual network in the data center, but in the data center, we need a lot of manual intervention, racking and stacking of servers, physically going to the servers, do these things. On the cloud, it's all virtual, so we need no manual intervention. So the cloud basically removed 50% of the workload and the knowledge that we all had to do these things the other way. So now, one DevOps engineer can probably do 10 to 20 people as introductory level jobs, junior engineer jobs. So we don't need as many people. So we've got that going on. We've got a massively bad economy going on right now. We've got a global pandemic. Countries have forced people to stay home, which basically meant global supply chains changed, which caused a shortage of parts, which caused inflation like you can't believe, as well as high unemployment. Things haven't looked this bad with regards to stagflation in 30, 40 years. So these things are going on. Is it anybody's fault? I'm not here to say it's anybody's fault. It doesn't matter, but it's the reality of today's time. So we've got reduced needs for people due to cost, and we've got reduced needs for people due to disruptive technologies like cloud computing and DevOps. So could you find an actual internship? I think you could spend 3 to 6 months looking for an internship. Now, I have some of my students do internships with me. I used to take interns, but I don't have the ability to do many internships or any internships outside of my student base these days because I'm just too busy. So if you can get an internship, I think it would be great. I'm going to say this. It's going to be really challenging to get an internship, maybe with a certified solutions architect professional, because that's only 10% of the knowledge. So I would say get good, get strong. And when you do go for an internship, if you choose to go in for an internship, we get most of our students hired between 4 months and 8 months, but that's just us. If you do a 3-month internship and it's the average salary is $600 a day, 3 months of internship is a cost you of $36,000. I'd rather buy good training. I'd rather study hard, and I'd rather get hired faster. I think it's a better return on investment, but it's purely up to you. But I hope I answered your question on internships. I think it'll be very hard. So I would get the right training, I would learn the right skills, and then go for the job. Unless you find some organization that just wants to take you in and really teach you in an internship. And I used to get to do this all the time, and I loved it, but I don't have the time. But if you do get an internship, you should not be just basically a taskmaster. We're just doing task. You should find someone that's going to be willing to spend the time with you to build your career. Otherwise, it's just a waste of your time. So I hope I answered your question with some help. Okay, I see the next thing is from Cloud Learner. That was very passionate. Yes, I'm very passionate about getting people hired. It's absolutely essential to me. No Street makes sense. Perfect. You're welcome. I just want to make sure we give you the best information. I'm a business executive. Architects are executives. Here's the thing. And straight pay, that's good. Thank you, Mike. Looking forward to it. Look forward to working with you as well. Look forward to helping you get to your goals. No, straight, makes sense. Thank you. You're more than welcome. I'm very passionate about getting to your goals. And as a business executive, here's one of the things that I like to do. I apply an ROI model to everything. Here's what do I mean. If I want to go spend $1,000 on a toy or invest $1,000 in my business, which is the better alternative? Investing the $1,000 in my business. So you only have one at a time and lots of money. So I believe that what you should do is you should focus exclusively on what you want and focus all your energies and efforts on how to get there and the fastest, most efficient means possible. So I hope I actually answered that. Pierre Lincoln. Okay. You got the link to the course, but it says $9.99. Is that correct? Or $800 that you mentioned? Well, the course itself is $9.99. But Chris from my team put a 20% coupon that you can actually use, and Chris will do that. So Pierre Lincoln, you got the link to the course, but it says $9.99. That is the correct price for the course, but remember we gave you a 20% off coupon. So the coupon code is CDP20OFF. Chris from my team will pop that code in there one more time for you. But the code is C as in Charlie, D as in Delta, P as in Papa, 20, O as in Oscar, F as in Foxtrot, and F as in Foxtrot. That will give you 20% off to our program, which will drop the course to $800 exactly as I mentioned. Okay, the next question, and it's a great question from Michael ISSJ2, is would a cloud architect, solutions architect need to know Terraform? No, or just containers and Kubernetes. Here's the thing, Michael. We are systems designers. We design end-to-end systems. Terraform is about automating the release and deployment of things. That's not system design. So it's somebody else's skill. That's a DevOps skill. Now, we do need to understand containers. And we do need to understand Kubernetes. And to that end, I filmed a containers versus virtual machine video just yesterday and a Kubernetes video just yesterday. And we're going to be releasing them soon, and they'll be free very soon. Additionally, we're going to be releasing an article on Kubernetes and how it works and why organizations would use it, because that is a critical architect skill. Why is it such a critical architect skill? It's a critical architect skill for the following reasons. It's a critical architect skill because we need to design the solution. And what is a container? It's one of two computing platforms on the cloud. Basically, we've got virtual machines or containers. So guess what? Containers are important knowledge. But no, we're not going to be using Terraform. We need to know that it's a tool to automate the release of things, but that's it. That is a DevOps or even a SysOps world. We are, Michael, designers, so it's not a toolkit. So hope I answered your question there in some depth there. Any more questions for me? So if there's more questions, let me know. In the meantime, if you're enjoying this conference, if you could leave a like, please feel free to share this video with others. And excuse me, my beautiful cat Cindy is back with regards to my sneezing. You should see this. I wanted to surprise my wife. She loves cats. I go to this cat place, this cat rescue, this little baby girl kitten. She jumps up on my lap. I can't not take her home. I'm highly allergic to this cat. I cook shrimp for this cat every day, scallops for this cat every day, and tuna for this cat every day. So she's a little bit pampered, but she does get to my allergies. And Chris, if you have the ability while I get to the next one to show a picture of my beautiful little girl, Cindy, I think you have one. Please feel free to do so. And then I'm going to get to the next question from Sanchit Singh. Do cloud architects require security certifications too? Sanchit Singh, that's a really great question. So Sanchit Singh, if you want to be a cloud security architect, I would strongly recommend you have a security certification. generally speaking, I like to make it realistically speaking, Sanchit, I like to basically get the certifications that are in line with the career someone desires. So if someone desires to be a cloud security architect, I'm loving that certified solution architect professional with like a CISSP. Someone wants to be a cloud network architect, I'm loving the Cisco certified network professional and or CCIE plus the certified solutions architect professional. Here's my thing about certifications, Sanchit Singh. They can help you by making you look very focused on something and building a portfolio and making up for gaps in experience. So certifications in the right field, Sanchit, wow, they're going to help you. Certifications in the wrong field make you look more of a jack of all trades. What happens when you're a jack of all trades? Nobody knows what you are, and your salary goes down dramatically because people see me and know a little bit about a lot of things, but not enough to be great at anything. So Sanchit, make sure those certifications are exactly in the field you want, and then they will do wonders, wonders, wonders to building you a fantastic career, regardless of what that career may be. So, next question. And this question is from Jonathan Brown, and it's a great question. Jonathan Brown's question is, oh, that's my cat Cindy, everybody. So this is the beautiful little girl that gives me the allergies. Here's my cat Cindy about 3 days ago. She wanted to go outside and climb a tree in my backyard, which she loves to do. She loves to walk on the little branches. It makes me terrified as she does it, but she's got the balance of an Olympic gymnast. And it was raining outside and she could not climb her tree and she couldn't go chase the things that she wanted to chase. So this is what my beautiful baby girl, Cindy the cat, looks like when she can't go outside and do what she wants. That is obviously a very spoiled, very happy cat. She couldn't get what she wanted, and look at that expression. So Cindy, we love you. That's all I can say. Appreciate your sleeping on my feet or my chest or my belly every night. And all the love. Of course, my allergies, not super thrilled as well. So welcome, Cindy the cat. And thanks, Chris, for popping that up there. Next question is from Jonathan Brown. Must one become very good programming to make it into solution architect? Programming is not an architect skill. So I've been an architect now since 2000, or even longer than that. I have never coded anything in my life. Wait, that's not true. I did work at a job at one point where my manager said, hey, it would be great if you could write an expect TCL script or a bash script. And I said, I'm a lead network architect responsible for the world's largest market maker trading system on the NASDAQ. You really want me to learn scripting? And the chief information officer says, yes. I said, you realize that you guys have outages every day prior to me being here. And now that I'm here, there's no outages. And when there is one, we can fix it in seconds. And the CIO said, I want you to learn to code. So I went to Sun Microsystems for the day, for the week. I took a scripting class, got to drink a lot of good wine, eat a lot of nice steaks, and, had a really good vacation. I came back. I was there on the first day. There's literally like a box on my desk of all the problems that actually occurred the second that I was away. I had 1,000,001 phone calls waiting for me to get back. And the CIO said to me, Mike, you're right. I'm never, ever, ever going to ask you to code again. I don't know what I was thinking. You went out. We had a 1-hour outage. We lost like $4 million. And guess what? You were right. If you were here, none of this would have happened. And guess what? I'll let my software people code. Guess what? We've got 300 software engineers here. And I was like, thank you for reaching reality. So, this happened to me about 20 years ago. So, but coding is not a skill for an architect. There are jobs that masquerade as architect jobs where they mention these things. But unless you're an application architect or a big data architect where you're going to be writing Python scripts, if you're a cloud architect or a solution architect, there's no coding. Here's the reality. There's almost no configuring either. Design, 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 present, sell, design, present, sell, design, lead, present, sell, design. That's the job. So no coding whatsoever. Great question there, Jonathan Brown. Next question is from No Street. Is it possible to start doing the cloud architect job purely remotely, especially due to COVID? Can you get one of these jobs remotely? The answer is yes. I get 2 to 3 job offers a day these days for cloud architect jobs. Why? People want a cloud architect with knowledge of the network and the data center, which I check off these boxes. They want someone that knows system design. I check off these boxes. They want someone with a data center background, network background. I check it off. They want like heavy duty experience, which I check off, but they also want business acumen, communication skills, emotional intelligence, executive presence. When I bring somebody on my show, they get job offers within a day in most cases. The world wants people that can communicate for these architecture roles. So, totally possible. Now, is there a such thing as purely remote? Probably not. Remember, these are human interfacing jobs. So during COVID, could you be stuck at home and not traveling? Sure. But in real life, while it's possible to do a purely remote job now because of COVID, at some point you're going to have to get in front of that customer, and you're going to have that face-to-face meeting, and you're not going to be able to do that on remotely. So can you be partially remote or 3/4 remote or even 80% remote? The answer is yes, but you will have to meet with clients. You may not need to go to the office, but you need to meet with clients. Now, as you become more seasoned as an architect, and you start moving into really high-paid enterprise architect roles, like I've taken most of my career, things change. So you're going to be giving presentations to global audiences of thousands of people. It's going to be normal for you. You're going to have to travel for that. But again, we're not doing that much of them right now. You're going to be interacting with clients, and you're going to have to be there. You're going to do something like I used to do all the time, and they're called executive briefings. So for example, let's say you work at an Amazon or a Cisco or a Google. They're going to fly the CEO of an organization with the CIO and the CTO and the CFO and a couple of leading VPs to your facility, and they're going to be like the CEO of your company may present to them, an architect may present to them, a couple of product managers may present to them, and you're going to have to be there for some of that. So you can start a cloud architect job remotely, and it can be 90% remotely, but at some point you're going to have to go meet with the client. Most meetings are done remotely right now, but they will go back to in-person at some point in the future. But going to an office, I haven't been to an office for 20 years, except for these kind of executive briefings and presentations. So I hope I answered your question there. Let's go to the next question. Michael ISSJ2. Is a cloud adoption framework apart from the system design we had showcased? Well, here's how I feel about frameworks. I've been looking at frameworks forever. These theoretical frameworks, this goes to this, which goes to this. On paper, they look pretty, but in reality, they tell you nothing. Look, I'm a cloud security guy, I'm a cloud infrastructure guy. And here's one of the things that I've noticed. Go read the NIST framework. The most secure, best advanced, and most technologically advanced minds in the world put this thing together. It specifies something at this theoretical high-level policy. Guess what? Now I got to translate to something that means something. Where do you put your firewalls, your IDS, IPS systems? What do you do? All these things that go part of it. None of that's going to be specified in these frameworks. So the framework is this nice theoretical thing. TOGAF has a nice academic framework. NIST has a framework. HIPAA has a framework. We do use frameworks because we have to, but I'd say the frameworks are about as far from reality as you can possibly get. So we teach more of how to do the actual job and how to make sure the customer wants that and how to be successful, as opposed to a framework that's going to be really, really, really hard to go from that framework to actually anything in reality. People ask me my favorite framework to networking, and I say the core access and distribution. And they, what do you mean? I say that's how they train Cisco certified internet experts and Cisco certified design experts. How do you modularize, decouple, and make your system scalable, highly available, and highly resilient? Those are the things, and highly secure. These are the things that organizations really care about, as opposed to frameworks. I should say, if you're enjoying this content, please leave a like or subscribe and hit the bell. Also, please share this content with someone that you find that would be very helpful. So now, Sanchit Singh, Cloud Infrastructure Architect is a customer-facing role, and Cloud Security Architect is a customer-facing role. So yes, yes, yes. And a Cloud Security Architect is basically a cloud architect with a lot of knowledge and experience, and it is a customer-facing role. There is no such architect role that is not customer-facing, Sanchit Singh. They're all customer-facing. Engineers are behind the scenes. Architects are out there, customer-facing. The closer you are to the customer, the more you'll be paid. The closer you are to revenue, the more you'll be paid. That's why architects can earn 2 to 3 times that of a cloud engineer with experience, because they're out there and they're customer-facing. It is much harder to find a technology professional that can go out there and deliver a killer presentation and close $1 billion deal than it is to find someone that can be behind a desk and start typing. So all architect jobs are customer facing. The more customer facing, the more your business acumen skills, the greater your communication skills, the greater your salary. These skills have so much more with regards to your salary and career progression than you would ever get by basically focusing purely on the technical. So, Sanchin, I hope we answered your question there. And now, from No Street, thank you. Another quick question regarding your career development program. Great. Does it require you to have a certification? No. No Street. And even if you had a certification, I'd still have to start you from the beginning. And here's why. Here's all the certifications are. Here's how to set up an S3 bucket, and here's how to configure it. Here's how to turn on an EC2 instance, and that's it. There's no knowledge in these certifications related to architecture design. So even when people have the Certified Solution Architect Professional, I've got a lot of students with that, I still have to start them from ground zero. I have to teach the network and the data center. And then I have to teach all the skills that are necessary, and then we build the certifications along the way. It doesn't matter if someone's certified or not. I know what's in the certification. That certification provides no preparation for the actual job as a cloud architect. It does give you the name of the service. We do need our students to be certified. So if they're certified, yes, it helps because then they don't need to worry about the certification later. But the reality is I'd rather you do it at the same time. I'd rather us teach you the tech. What is the tech? How does the tech work? Why does the organizations use it? How does it fit into an end-to-end architecture? And once you know the tech, you can be like me and spend a weekend preparing for the Certified Solution Architect Professional and pass it. It's no big deal. But if you don't actually know what the tech is, then something which you could do in a weekend is going to take you 6 months of stress and hard work. So we much prefer to work with people, teach them the foundation. When you've got good fundamentals, we can wrap up really, really fast and get you to be an expert. Now, I'm going to tell you no straight why we focus so much on these fundamentals. What if I told you there's been no technology advancements in the last 30 years other than processor speed? What if I tell you that everything on the cloud is 30 years old? What if I tell you that just last week, Amazon announced routing between subnets? Guess what? I've done this for the last 30 years. When you hear Transit Gateway or you hear Cloud Hub, to me, that's a BGP route reflector from 30 years ago. It's the same technology. When we talk about firewalls, same tech. So if you know the network and you know the data center, then you know the cloud, and every new tech is really, really easy because the new tech is just a version of the old tech with a new name. So that's it. So that's why we focus so much on the fundamentals. When your fundamentals are good, like I speak to my friend Raj, for example, he and I did our CCIEs together, and I say, Raj, I need a great cloud architect. And he's like, okay. And now that Raj does work for one of the major cloud providers. And you know how he went to the cloud provider? He was a CCIE like me. They hired him on the spot because he knew the network. So here's the thing. It's more important to have the knowledge of the fundamentals, more important to have the business acumen, more important to have the communication skills. These are the things that matter. That's what gets you hired. And of course, not going directly to the hiring manager, skipping HR along the way. And part of our system is how we do all of those things. So I hope I answered your question there. Now, Jonathan Brown, what kind of cloud architect is in demand right now, and which one do you see being in demand in the future? Well, Jonathan Brown, all architects I see having incredible high demand for the future, and here's the reason. First, the network in the data center, which is my passion and love, I've worked with it forever, now moved to the cloud, which is network in the data center. Great. But what else? What's really going on here? People that know how to take the end-to-end systems there, like a cloud architect, are going to have great careers. Networking, cloud infrastructure architects are extremely well paid because nobody knows the network. And here's what's going on. People are trying to learn the network by taking an AWS advanced networking, which is kind of like an intro to junior level networking. That's basically it. It's an intro to junior level networking. In fact, I now see course providers that have never worked in networking making advanced networking courses, and that's scary. I got to tell you, in my career, 90% of all outages I've seen are when people don't know the network or doing networking, because networking is a skill. So cloud networking is brilliant, lots of jobs. Cloud security, brilliant, lots of jobs. Guess what else I see going on? I actually see a lot of these big data architects coming in. And when I'm talking about big data architects and big data cloud architects, I'm not talking about someone that just passed a silly machine learning exam. Machine learning to me is a tool. Terraform is a tool. CloudFormation is a tool. I see big data people having big data architect work in the cloud. Combine the cloud architect work, mix it with a data scientist, find me someone that can basically figure out what to do with all this big data coming in from everywhere, aggregate that data, massage that data, do some learning on that data to make better business decisions closer to real time. I see that as a huge demand. Now, data scientist jobs are one of the hardest to get, and that's why a lot of data scientists become cloud architects on the way there. But I see it as a great career. Hard to get the job, especially when you don't have a PhD in mathematics. But I still see it as a really great career. So I also see architects that focus on an industry. Maybe you're an expert on the financial world and you're a cloud architect and you design systems for banks. Great there. Same thing for healthcare. Maybe, for example, you're an extreme knowledgeable about the healthcare industry and you design end-to-end systems for healthcare organizations. Love it. Just become great at something and specialize, and you should be in great shape. Hope I answered your question there. Any other questions for me? Or did I miss any questions over there? So, okay, No Street, we're going to ask you, we're going to answer your question. And then after that, it looks like Will Cullen has a great question. So, No Street, thank you. What is the time commitment roughly to keep making progress with your program? You've mentioned a couple of live sessions per week so far. Just asking because I'm working 2 jobs and really want to move up. So, on No Street, there's 2 options. Typically speaking, I look for 20 hours per week of time. About 6 hours of classes and about 10 to 15 hours of studying on your own. Now, having said all of that, there are times where I have people that work 2 jobs or 3 jobs. I got students that do that to survive. If some of them want to only work 15 hours a week, I keep them on my program longer. I don't care. We don't charge more. If someone needs to spend an extra 2 months or 3 months because they've got other commitments in their life, we're still happy to work with them. We don't charge more. We just keep you in the program longer until you get hired. So I'd say in general, we look for 20 hours a week. Look, I've had people get through my program in 3 weeks and get hired. It's rare. I've also had people that, need 6 months, and that's okay too. All our goal is we take you in, we give you the technical competency, the interview skills, the emotional intelligence, the communication skills, executive presence, and we get you hired in the end. Other than that, we don't care. So typically speaking, 20 hours to get through on time. But, if you need a little longer, you need to slow the pace down, we're still happy to work with you. It doesn't matter to us. We'll get you to your goals. Hope I answered your question there, No Street. And then Jonathan Brown, did we go over hybrid cloud setups? Well, Jonathan Brown, there is no such thing in today's world as a single pure cloud. So we do cloud, we do hybrid clouds, we do multi-clouds, we do hybrid cloud plus multi-clouds. All of our students know how to work on multi-clouds because there's no such thing as a single cloud anymore. That's kind of dead. It was there, but now everything has gone everywhere. So, No Street, that helped you a lot. Appreciate your effort. Perfect. We're so happy you got that. So Jonathan Brown, like I mentioned, we go over hybrid clouds, multi-clouds, and everywhere in between. So the next question is from Pierre Lincoln. What projects was from Will Cullen. What projects would I recommend to keep people build to become more competent architect? I've mentioned this before, but I know it's YouTube and you can join anytime you want. First thing that I would do is I would buy a 16-core server if you're not one of our students. On that server, first thing I would do is set up server virtualization with VMware ESXi and or KVM, QEMU, or all 3. Why? That's going to teach you the main computing on the cloud. After that, I want you to build containers. After that, I want you to build a Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP stack the hard way. Anybody can do this on the cloud in 2 minutes. It's all done, but I want you to build it the hard way. I want you to set up file sharing with NFS. I want you to set up server message block file sharing. You need to do that as well because that's minimum. I want you to build the Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP web stack for real the hard way on the servers. I want you to build firewalls. I want you to build VPN concentrators. I want you to set up Active Directory, and I want you to build a cloud. Now, I want you to federate the cloud that you built on your servers or our servers to the Active Directory server. Then connect your cloud that you built, your own cloud that's going to look and feel just like the AWS cloud, but you know how to build the cloud yourself, which teaches you the cloud. Connect it to the GCP cloud, connect it to the AWS cloud. Just connect it. Learn the hybrid cloud, multi-cloud setup, but learn the cloud. These are the kind of projects that will give you the technical experience, make you a competent architect. But, well, Colin, without the business skills, communication skills, executive presence, emotional intelligence training, ROI modeling, it'll still be only half of the job. So learn everything necessary to get it done. Learn how the tech works to be an architect. The architect is not a configuration job. The architect is not a coding job. The architect is an end-to-end system design job. Design it based upon customer goals, business requirements, legal goals. Then design it and present it back to the customer, convince the customer they need it. And once it's done, somebody else, like a cloud engineer, is going to go build it, and you move on to the next one. But you might lead the deployment a little bit. Hope I answered your question. So learn it all the way down to the bare elements. That's the way to do that, even if you're not going to be dealing with it every day. Will, Colin, I think that's great. You got it. I'm so happy to hear that. Are there any other questions for me? Peter Lincoln, after 16 weeks of training, what kind of job can you get? Well, you can get a cloud architect job or a solution architect job. Average salary for one of these jobs is about $150,000 per year. So that's the expected salary you should get. My students that are graduating are typically earning around that in the US. In the UK, they're typically earning around £100,000 a year. It seems to be a little lower pay than what we're getting in the US. But that's typical average pay for someone that graduates that's in these jobs. But again, that's like introductory cloud architect salary. So Tyrone has a relatively good question. Hi, Mike, hope you're well. Looked at the requirements from recruiters, and 70% requires computer science degrees. Is this real? Well, Tyrone, I don't have any degrees in computer science. My master's degree is as a nurse practitioner for internal medicine. My second master's degree is in business. I have no tech degrees. In fact, 90% of the most successful people I know also don't have any tech careers. So I'd say your communication skills matter a lot more important than your degrees, Tyrone. But it is really helpful to have a degree. What's good about having a degree? It shows that you have the energy to stick with something from start to completion. It makes people feel like you know how to learn. This is typically a good kind of thing. So I like these things as well. So those are kind of the things that matter so much. So degree in computers, helpful. Degree in general, helpful. Necessary? Absolutely not. But very helpful. But what it's in is kind of almost irrelevant. Because everybody knows what we're taught in school has nothing to do with what we do in real life. Hope I answered your question there, Tyrone. Michael, ISSJ2, when you give a presentation for cloud design and you're pitching it to the stakeholder, did I ever come across the times where executives didn't ask me a question you didn't have the answer for? Absolutely. So, Michael, here's the thing. My architecture world is going to be a little different than the average person's architecture world. I was so good at networking, and I mean so good at networking, that the projects that I did were things that no one had ever done anywhere in the world before. And it would be with a major bank or a massive internet service provider, and they'd say, hey, we want to offer this new service to our customers. Yes, we know no one's ever done it. And when we research, nobody has ever done anything like this. So go figure it out. And when you get on these things and you're in an environment where you've got like 30 IIT or 30 MIT graduates all in a room that all have PhDs in something that are trying to do something that no one's ever done before, there's times where you're just saying, you know what, I'm not sure, and I'll get back to you with that. And that's a really critical thing for the architect. What is the worst thing an architect can do is bluff, which is a lie. or worse yet, abusification. In order to get this done, what we're going to have to do is we're going to attach this thing, which is a special API, which is going to connect this API connector, which is going to connect to this load balancer, attached to another API connector, and string buzzwords together. That will kill your career. You will be escorted out of that room so fast, you have no idea. And I've seen it happen all the time. It's the same reason 99% of interviews fail. Somebody lies to you with that. No big deal to say, you know what, I'm not sure. This is a very important thing. I want to bring it back to my team so I can get you the best answer, so we can give you the best solution, so we can be the best consultants and give you the best help to get you to be the most successful as possible. Customers will love it. They know that you care. So don't bluff, don't lie, be right out there, be really strong, be honest, ethical, and tell them you'll get back to them. And then go back to your team and get the best answer and get back to them as fast as possible and as promised. So hope I answered your question there. Renee asks, thank you for clearing my doubts, Mike. Wonderful. I'm so happy we're doing it. Now I can rest, man. Yes, actually, at the end of this, I'm probably going to do 45 minutes of yoga to do my physical therapy to keep my feet healthy after kind of, some of the challenges that I have orthopedically speaking from an injury. But you know what? I love doing what I'm doing. So I get to do this, do a little bit of yoga, and then get back to teaching people, which is the most fun thing I can ever imagine in the entire world. Any other questions for me? If anybody has any questions on cloud architect jobs, for my chief operating officer, Chris, that means he gets lunch, which is great. Chris definitely needs lunch. Chris is a very valuable member of our team, and I don't know what I would do without him. So yes, you get a lunch, Chris. Will, Colin, appreciate your work. Can't wait to be an architect. Thank you so much. Can't wait to look forward to you. Tyrone's question, does the career requirement architect the cloud pass on the engineers and move on to the next client, or is it maintaining the client? Okay, so Tyrone, there's two types of environments. As an architect, we're always going to maintain our relationship with our clients. But once we design it, here's the thing that actually occurs. The engineers build it. And when the engineers are done building it, they'll hand it off to some sysops people to maintain it. Now, I generally still keep my hand in it when I'm working on an architecture, because I made some commitments to the executive team. I can't just completely remove myself. So I make sure that I'm copied on the emails. I read the emails. If and when the customer wants me to come back, I'll do so. If I need to do some education of the engineers, I'll do so. But for the most part, client 1, client 2, client 3. But I try and stay part of the process until I know the clients are successful, at least in some way, shape, or form. I like to periodically check in with my clients. Is it necessarily part of the job? The answer is no. But for me, if I'm going to interact with a client and be a solution provider, I need to be certain that I'm helping that client. It's so critical to me. I think a trait of a good cloud architect or a network architect or a cloud security architect, or even a good cloud engineer, is follow through and delighting the customer with everything you do. Everything you do should be customer focused. If you sell something that costs $1, you should give the customer $2 in value, $3 in value. If you're building a solution for that, it needs to work. It needs to work as promised and be better than anything they thought of. So for that's the reason I'm highly focused on these things. And then thinking about the next thing that you can do to optimize that business, Tyrone. So what is the next evolution of their architecture? And from a pure pragmatic side, Tyrone, it's much easier to give a new architecture to someone that you've got a relationship with than someone that you don't know. Pierre Lincoln, thanks, Mike. You've been looking for the right path to being a solution architect. My channel has been of help. I'm so happy to hear that. Look forward to working with you. I look forward to working with you, Pierre Lincoln, as well. We're really hyper-focused on making sure our students do well. It's all about making you guys succeed. I'm going to drop a link to our office's phone number in case anybody's got any questions for our team. They can call us. I'll have Chris from my team pop a link to the course along with a small or like a 20% coupon code to give you guys a substantial discount to try and make our inexpensive course even cheaper for you guys. Any last questions for me? Okay, if there are any last questions for me, let me know. Otherwise, I get back to my day, start working on new content so we can always have fresh new content for both our students as well as the cloud architect community. We do anything we can to build your cloud careers around here. We mean it. We don't just say that. So are there any last questions for me? Okay. Well, if there are no questions, oh, wait, there's another question. From Pierre Lincoln. You're planning to move to the UK next year. Do you help out there after you get a job? Of course. We have recruiters everywhere. We've got a tremendous number of students in the UK that have gotten hired recently, and they're all doing well. So you'll be fine in the UK. It's not an issue. Doesn't matter if you're in the UK, if you're in South Africa, if you're in Lagos, Nigeria, or Bangalore, India. We're training people for these jobs, and they do well. Got lots of students in all these places as well. Tyrone, what is a day like for a cloud architect? It's a good question. It's going to vary every day, but typically speaking, your day is relatively easy compared to other tech jobs that I've had. And what I mean by that is, you wake up, get some emails, you might work on some architectural design for an hour or two. You might go have a customer meeting, which could be in person, for example. And it's definitely not a 24/7 job, Tyrone, compared to some of the engineering roles that can be. So basically, you're going in there, then you present to a client, you ask some questions, you might go back, you might interact with your team, try and develop an architecture. Then you might go back and take a client out for dinner, buy some drinks with a corporate credit card. That could be one day. The next day, you could be doing presentations all day long. The day after that, you could be in your office all day long, just designing things and documenting things. And you could be doing that for a week straight. Then the next thing you could do presentations all day. So it's going to be presentations. It's going to be entertaining clients. It's going to be doing designs, documentation, that kind of the job. ROI modeling. So lots and lots and lots of customer-facing things. It is not a 24/7 job. Now, having said all of this, anytime you get a good job, anytime you have a high-paying job, you could be at anywhere and anytime be called in to do things. So as an architect, have I taken clients out for steaks and drinks and gotten home at 2:00 in the morning? The answer is yes. Have I started my day by basically leaving Florida, giving a speech in Washington, D.C. that morning, flying straight to California, giving a presentation in California, and then taking a flight that night to give a speech in the UK the next day, and then to go to Dubai the day after that, and then to go to Brisbane, Australia the day after that? Sure, I have. Lots of times. And you know what? I've also had a lot of days where I went to the beach all day long in Palm Beach, where I was living, and pretty much sat at the beach all day. So I will say engineering jobs, many more hours. Architecture jobs, much more comfortable. Not a 24/7 job, but not necessarily something where you're not going to work late either. So you got to do what's necessary to get the job done. As architects, there will be times where there's a crunch, where we're going to have to all stay late and work together. And there's going to be times where it's going to be a pure vacation. Tyrone, if I had to start my own business as a cloud architect, I could do really, really well. I'd bill out services that are between $400 and $600 an hour for someone with my skill set. I'd easily be able to bill at least 40 hours a week. No big deal. So you can easily earn money as a good cloud architect. But in order to earn money like that, here's what has to happen. First, you've got to be solid. Then you have to be known in the industry, and then you have to build the brand. My brand is very simple. My brand is someone that's very easy to work with. My brand is someone that is super reliable. My brand is that if you reach out to me at midnight, you're going to hear back from me at 12:05. My brand is being highly dependable. My brand is being an expert with the network and an expert with banking and healthcare and service providers. My brand is easy to get hired, but it's taken me a long time to build that brand. If I was new, who's really going to hire me to be on my own? So you got to, generally speaking, have a couple of years work experience before you try and go out on your own. And that way you can actually be able to get the right jobs that'll give you the right pay, so you'll be able to make the right impact for your customers. So Tyrone, if I had to start my own business, what could you get? How would you earn money? How much could you earn? I hope I answered your question there. Peer linking, can you get a remote cloud architect job? The answer is absolutely yes. I get offers, multiple offers per day. My students do all the time. I've got a lot of graduates that basically have remote cloud architect jobs, not a problem. Any other questions here? These cloud architect careers are really wonderful, and I absolutely love them. And that's why I'm talking about these things. If you want to be a cloud architect, it's great. There's lots of great cloud architect jobs. You know, at Go Cloud Architects, everything we do is just focused on building cloud architect careers or network architect careers or cloud network architect careers. And we're really focused on, you know, how you get your first cloud architect job, or basically speaking, how to get to your goals. Tyrone, you've got another question? Go ask it. That's why we're here. Go ahead, Tyrone. I see you have another question, and we love answering questions. So anything we can do to help you, Tyrone. So while we're waiting for Tyrone, any other people have any other questions? Tyrone, would I advise sticking to one industry providing architectures, example, hospitality or retail, or would I jump around industries? Well, when I'm new, Tyrone, I would basically, you know, get some experience in lots of different things. One of the things that made me so good at healthcare is I spent a lot of time designing networks for service providers and a lot of time designing networks for banks. So in healthcare, it used to be that, you know, our systems were terrible. So at Cisco, I was the lead architect behind the medical grade network. And where do we get information from the medical grade network? Well, I said, I've been designing systems for banks. What do banks have in common with healthcare? The ability to be up all the time. Because in a bank, if the systems go down, people lose money. And if a hospital systems go down, people die. I started looking at the communications enhancements we were able to use in banking and said, you know what? If we can do those things between doctors and nurses and physical therapists and pharmacists, we can do this. So I took some of those skills. Then I said, wait a second, who has the most experience designing these big global networks? And that's the service provider. So I took things out of there. Then I did some security consulting in my time at Cisco. I've got a lot of security background. So I started to say, how can we lock down an enterprise better, like healthcare, like we need to do in a bank? So when you've got a lot of different experiences in different industries, then, by the way, you're in a specialty position to really make some helpful advice to people. So initially, like to get some broader experience. And then as soon as you've got some experience, I like you to niche down the blow up, basically focus on one area, but you need to have some baseline knowledge first. So generally speaking, for the first year or two, I generally advise you to get some experience in just as a generic cloud architect or a cloud security architect or cloud network architect. That would be my advice when you start your cloud architect career, Tyrone. Okay, so the next question I have is from Mahesh, and it's a great question. And the question is, can you differentiate between a cloud architect, cloud data architect, and cloud solution architect? So the answer is sure. So there's a lot of variations in these terms, Mahesh, but here's the first one. A cloud architect is someone that meets with a client, they get their business, legal, technical environments, and they design a robust end-to-end solution. So that might be a hybrid cloud, that might be a multi-cloud, that may be a hybrid cloud or multi-cloud. That's what a cloud architect does. Of the three you mentioned, the cloud architect has the best career potential, the highest salaries, and the most career mobility. So there's there. The next is the solution architect, which is kind of like a junior cloud architect. The solution architect starts with the client, asks the right questions, and designs an end-to-end solution for a customer with one cloud provider. So just AWS or just Azure. So a real cloud architect knows how to work end-to-end to build the customer's best solutions with everything. Should they stay in the data center? Should they go to the cloud? Should they do multi-clouds? That's the cloud architect. The solutions architect is, I can help you with your AWS solutions as a rule. Now there's some crossover here. Now a data architect is something very different. A cloud data architect is just a data architect. They just work in the cloud. And they are basically someone that's going to become an expert with databases. So they're going to need to be an expert on NoSQL databases, relational databases. They're going to have to become an expert on data lakes. They're going to have to be an expert on data warehouses. They're going to have to be an expert on business intelligence tools. Ideally, they should know a lot about machine learning. Relatively speaking, it's someone that basically does data scientist work or design systems for data scientists. So that's big data. So good career, but totally different. So cloud architect, think end-to-end system design in the most efficient way possible across all clouds and all tech. Solution architect, basically Azure only, or GCP only, or AWS only. And big data architect, someone that only focuses on databases, data ingestion, business analysis tools, maybe some machine learning, some data lakes, those kind of things. Hope I answered your question there, Mahesh. Tyrone, we're super excited to work with you, and we look forward to working with you in our program whenever you are ready. Any last questions for me? Okay. Well, if there's no questions, tomorrow we have a completely free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. I strongly encourage you to attend. We will have a really great time. We will start at the beginning. We will tell you how I shifted from medicine to tech so that you can learn how to make your own career transitions. Then we'll teach you how to leverage your CAST experience so you can get hired. Then after that, we're going to have a lot of fun. And we're going to talk about what hiring managers want, because if you're what the hiring managers want, you're going to get hired, and hired every time and paid more. Then we're going to talk about how to get experience, real experience that hiring managers talk about. Then we'll talk about things that hiring managers want to hear in an interview. Then we'll talk about how to use the recruiting network to get your first tech jobs. And then after that, we'll spend an hour answering any questions you have. It'll be on Zoom. You can ask questions in real time, and it will be a fantastic experience. So we are really excited to see you on this. We've got the link for this free session tomorrow. Chris from my team will do the following. He will post a link to our training. I will post a link to our, what do you call it? Office, if you've got any questions for us. And Chris will post a link to our training and a 20% off coupon. And if there's no other questions after Chris does that, we will call it a day, and we will look forward to seeing you tomorrow. So please feel free to join us for our free webinar. And guess what? Got some great videos coming out this week or early next week, and they're going to be on virtualization versus containers. Got a video on Kubernetes, and we've got a pretty deep article we wrote on Kubernetes. Something that every cloud architect needs to know is, Kubernetes and the container orchestration in the system. So we're excited to be releasing that in the next couple of days. I'm going to end this call right now. I hope we are able to help you with your cloud architect career, or your solution architect career, or your cloud engineering career, or even a cloud DevOps career, because we want to do everything we can to help you build the best cloud career. This is Michael Gibbs. I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Architects. It's an honor to spend the morning with you, and a privilege to be here to be able to help guide you to build your best career. So love working with you guys, and I'll see you very soon. Take care, everyone.